Mayor, can I ask Clint a quick question?
Okay, I
Sure.
think
Oh,
we're set.
And it
recording.
looks like we're still waiting on Ronnie to join. And Mike. Might they be in the waiting room?
We have Mike.
Oh, I see Mike. I apologize. Hi.
We don't have
I'm
Ronnie
sorry.
yet.
I'm comfortable with proceeding.
I'll keep an eye on the waiting room for Ronnie.
Thank you so much. All right. Hi, Council. Hi, everyone. Time is 7:07. We are now December 8th, 2020, entering into our regular City Council meeting. We are at the section 3 on our agenda for this evening. Sorry, section 2, call to order and roll call attendance. Summer, will you go ahead and take us through roll call attendance, please?
Have Mayor Emily Niehaus, Karen Guzman Newton, Moab City Council member, Lori Simonson, City Attorney, Brady Bradfield from Southeastern Utah Health Department, Carly Castle, Assistant City Manager, Jen Sadoff with Moab Regional Hospital, Joel Linares, City Manager, Kaylin Jones, Moab City Council, Clint York, Finance Director, Mike Duncan, Moab City Council, Tawny Knutson Boyd, Moab City Council, and Ronnie Duressery, Moab City Council.
Thank you so much. You know, I don't see Ronnie. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much. We are in section 3, citizens to be heard. As we are meeting electronically, there are 2 ways for citizens to be heard, either submitting a comment form to us via the website, of which at this moment we've received 1 comment that was electronically submitted. Also, citizens are able to call in at this time or Zoom in at this time and join us to make comments online. It looks like we've got 1, maybe 2 citizens with us tonight to be heard. And so let's see. Kendrick, are you joining us for citizens to be heard?
I'm joining on behalf of Red Hill Strategic. Casey's on his way.
Okay, I was wondering. Well, welcome. And actually, we are not quite at your agenda item. It'll be probably about maybe 30 minutes before, 45 minutes before we get there. So
Okay.
you are welcome to zoom out or phase out or whatever
In
you'd
the
like.
waiting room.
You
Casey's in the waiting room also.
Okay, so Kendrick, we're going to move you to the waiting room. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, we'll see you soon. And oh gosh, what happened here?
Johnny C was the other one.
Okay, Johnny C, welcome. We are assuming you are a citizen calling in to be heard.
Actually, no. This is Greg Curtis, and I work with Casey Hill, and he just asked if I would listen in tonight. So we're just,
Perfect.
you can put me in the waiting room.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Okay, thank
We
you.
appreciate you. Okay, then Summer, unless there's anyone else that I can't I can't see.
I
will
don't
move
see anybody
on.
else.
Fantastic. We are at section 4 of our agenda, administrative reports. 4.1, COVID-19 updates. Council, I have invited CEO Jen Sadoff and Brandon Bradford to join us this evening to give us updates. I'm so grateful to the 2 of you for agreeing to join us. Thank you so much, and thank your teams for the hard work. This is just, we are just not over this pandemic. So thank you for joining us tonight and sharing with us some information.
Sure. Is there an order that you prefer us to go in?
I mean, ladies first.
All right. Well, I first just want to say thank you to all of you as leaders in our community. I think that you've all done a really great job getting the message out to our community about the importance of social distancing and masking and being supportive of some of the things the county has put into place around public mask mandates. I think it's made a really big difference in Moab. And when you look at where we're at as compared to the rest of the state, we are doing a little bit better. And I think that thanks goes to you and to the citizens of Moab for participating and making good choices. It's making a difference. So far, we're really happy, and I'm going to knock on. And make my dog bark, apparently. We have had no cases in our long-term care center residents. I think we're one of only 3 long-term care centers in the state where that's happened with. There have been some cases in long-term care employees, but they have been caught early and the residents have been protected. The hospital has not been overwhelmed, and we're really grateful to everybody's hard work to keep that. We've had a total of 7 patients who've been hospitalized over the course of this pandemic. All of the people who have been hospitalized at Moab Regional Hospital have been discharged and are in the process of recovering or are recovered. We currently have no COVID-19 hospitalizations. And as of today, our rolling 7-day average of symptomatic testing at Moab Regional Hospital was 15.7%, which is a little bit lower than the rest of the state. I think the state is somewhere around 18.5% to 19%. So that's really good news. In terms of testing, we have reduced our asymptomatic high-risk employer testing in half in order to meet the request by the state laboratory to reduce the number of tests coming in, primarily because there are so many symptomatic people around the state. They really needed to prioritize those tests to symptomatic people. We do think that probably by the middle of next week, we'll have our rapid testing back in place. And then that will allow us to fully resume the asymptomatic testing program, because we'll be able to take those state tests that we're using for symptomatic people, move those to rapids, and use the state tests for asymptomatic high-risk employer groups. Let's see, what else? We will also, hopefully by the end of this week, have a PCR rapid test available for people who need testing for travel. That will be a cash pay test. It's $125, and that is available through urgent care. And, primarily, I'd also really like to thank our staff. It has been very difficult with staffing for nurses, for laboratory technicians. These are areas that are already in shortages around the nation, and they're working overtime. They're getting sick too, primarily out in the community, not from at work, but that's been I would say one of our biggest challenges lately. So that's kind of our local situation at the hospital. The state and regional hospital situation is not as bright. It's definitely, we are in a state where we meet with St. Mary's Hospital and all of the Western Slope, Colorado hospitals daily to do bed counts, see where there's space available. As of this morning, St. Mary's Hospital had 2 available ICU beds. And that we have to remember, that's for the entire Western Slope of Colorado. That's where a lot of this area of Utah transfers to. So 2 ICU beds is not a good situation. We have been declined transfers to St. Mary's because of their capacity issues. And at the state level, the 4 major referral system hospitals, which are HCA, University of Utah, Steward Health, and Intermountain, they were all at either high or high to severe stress levels in yesterday's report. Their overall ICU capacity is available. It's at 86.4%. And their ICU, their COVID ICUs, most of them have split between ICU and COVID ICU. This morning, HCA was at 110% of their COVID ICU. University of Utah was at 180% of their COVID ICU. Intermountain was at 91%, and Steward Health was at 90%. And I bring these numbers to everybody's attention because when systems are putting, when there are patients and there's this number of patients, there's only so many ICU trained nurses and doctors. Essentially, at this point, they're pulling in people from all over the hospital. And when you're in an ICU, what you really want is ICU trained physicians and nurses, not the nurse that just, was pulled in off of med-surg to work in that area. So it is still a very serious situation. And, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. We do have a vaccine that we've been working with state and local agencies to come up with a plan to deliver to the community. We anticipate seeing the first doses arrive in Moab sometime in the middle of January. Those will be prioritized for frontline healthcare workers, physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, environmental services, and then as well as long-term care center employees and possibly long-term care center residents. We anticipate that sometime in mid-February, it'll be available for EMS, law enforcement, fire, first responders, and then sometime in March for high risk. And Brady, you may have different information, and sorry if we contradict each other. It's kind of all a moving target right now. And then we're hoping, they're hoping sometime in April or May, it'll be available for community members. It hasn't been tested on anybody under 14 yet. And they don't anticipate in this first round, and hopefully Brady will have some information on this. They don't know when it will be available for people under 18. And there is really good news on its, efficacy. The first shot, after the first shot, they're saying you're about 50% protected, and after the second shot, about 95%. So that's exciting, but it's a long way away. And we have a couple of big months ahead of us. And our goal is really for this community to have ICU centers that if they need an ICU, we can transfer them to. And in order to do that, we really need to kind of stay diligent about wearing masks, limiting socialization with people outside of your household, hand washing, all of that stuff that if people haven't heard that by now, they're maybe in a different planet, because I don't know how you could avoid not hearing that. Because there is, we're seeing about a rolling 7-day average of 3,000 cases a day in Utah. And they estimated that ICUs would be overrun at around 2,200 to 2,400 cases in a rolling 7-day average. So, and we're certainly seeing that. There's very few beds out there. So thanks for everybody's hard work. Keep it up. And I can answer any questions after Brady speaks, because he'll probably bring some really great information to the conversation as well.
Thank you, Jen.
Good evening, City Council, council members. Thanks, Jen. I appreciate the opportunity to hop on with you and talk a little bit about our situation. I also want to echo her thanks to you. Grand County has been under a mask mandate longer than others and could be more tired of it without kind of this constant reinforcement that this is what has allowed us to be in the situation that we are now, which isn't perfect, but it is better than almost everywhere else in the state, particularly considering the amount of visitors that ended up making the trek down to Moab this year. And I think one of the silver linings for us, from our point of view, is just how much we've enjoyed and admired those agencies we worked with throughout this process, and knowing that it's a team effort. Jen gave some of the updates from our point of view, but I'll talk a little bit about contact tracing. Many of you have probably heard the report that our contact tracing really is no longer happening. Now, it's important to divide that up into what is an investigation and what's contact tracing. We still do investigate every case. So we make contact with all of those positive cases in the county. And at that point, because of our caseload, we really rely on those cases to then forward the information we give to them onto their close contacts. Now, the ones we're most worried about are their household contacts. And so in a sense that contact tracing is still happening. But outside, if it's a social contact or a workplace contact, those individuals are forwarding the email packets that we get to them. And I will say we get a lot of those people reaching back out to us as we try to schedule them for testing if there are symptoms and such. And we get a lot of comments that this is just not the time to pull back on that. And certainly it's true. And yet right now we don't have the capacity to do that. Now, that doesn't mean it's permanently withdrawn. Our numbers lately have started to ease off a little bit. And as we clear off some of this kind of huge surge of cases that we had, many of which came from Carbon County, actually, then we will start to reintegrate aspects of contact tracing. And if we continue on our current path, we could do that with as soon as a week from now. So I do so many of these, I forget who needs to know what. We were also happy. There have been some challenges with testing. We were able to work with the state to get a rapid machine sent to the free clinic that I believe they'll get tomorrow. And we will get another rapid machine in our Moab office as well. These won't equate to hundreds of tests per day, but they should ease the hospital's burden just a little bit and make testing just a little bit more available where it is needed. Additionally, there is a little bit of controversy on testing extracurricular activities, the students that are participating there. But for now, it is at least another avenue where we can catch potential asymptomatic students or a few here and there that we might have otherwise missed. So it is an asset to the community. As we prepare for the vaccination that is fairly imminent and is good news, we anticipate reaching out to all of our cities, the major employers in the cities as well, as we kind of make our own priority list, and that will be based on what the CDC has already published. So we're just trying to fit our local groups into those already established risk levels 1 through 5. And we will not be involved in any of the vaccination for risk level 5, which is what Jen has already mentioned, the hospital groups. Long-term care facilities will receive their own vaccine. We will start to get involved for those at risk level 4, our first responders, and then moving on to essential workers and such. So, but we pretty much, it will be prescribed to us who we vaccinate. There has been a little bit of talk about there's some new data coming that indicates that maybe one dose of some of the vaccines will be sufficient, at least for now, which would allow us to give twice as many people the vaccination. That's real preliminary, and maybe I shouldn't even say stuff like that, but it's worth knowing that that is also an item for discussion. With that, I probably missed some things, but happy as well to take questions at this point.
One thing that I hear a lot is people saying they can't get tested if they've had a close contact with somebody, and I want to correct that the hospital will refer them to the health department for screening, and if the health department in their screening for close contact believes they need to be tested, they'll either provide the test or they will fax an order to the hospital for that person to be tested if they're unable to test them. So, that's kind of the first stop, is to get screened by the health department. If somebody calls you and says, I've tested positive, and the health department's recommended I reach out to you.
Yeah, and one aspect of that is everybody wants a rapid test, and I understand that, but at this point, that may be what they're thinking about, is those rapid tests may not be available. We still might have to send that out, but truly, I think for all contacts that we feel are in need of it, we're able to test those people.
Council questions. Ronnie.
Thanks, Braden. I'm never sure if I should call you Braden or Brady, so just tell me what you prefer. Thanks for responding to those questions I had recently, and I just have a few more for you and Jen, and that was, first of all, is there anything you can tell us? I guess one just gets curious about local cases, especially as we see numbers rise, about maybe what percentage of people we're seeing who are having lasting complications. I don't know, that may be too private for you to share, but that was one question. And then I just have one or two other quickies.
I think I could get that for you. I don't know that I have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, don't worry. I was just curious. As one
will,
reads the articles, one wonders. Yeah.
I will answer generally speaking. Maybe, again, I don't want to contradict Jen, but we have seen better outcomes from cases from Grand County than we have from Carbon and Emery counties. They generally recover quicker.
Do we have any idea why?
No.
Don't worry about it. Just curious. Okay. And then
there's some lifestyle. I think there's some lifestyle choices that affect that and they're a little bit healthier, but I'll dig into that a little bit more.
Okay. And then I think
uranium, perhaps. Ronnie, did you want him to answer your question about, is it Brady or Braden?
Oh, yeah. Let me know.
Either one. My real name is Braden. I grew up Brady. My wife said I should make the change when I took on a career, and I just have had a hard time doing it.
Okay, well, I won't worry too much about screwing up. Just, let me know if you care. And then just a quick question for you and Jen. So obviously we all recall very clearly the period of, making added PPE for first responders in hospital. And I guess I'm just wondering, as a council member and a resident, is there anything you guys need, that we could deliver on immediately? Just, maybe you guys have everything you need, but if you need something, let us know.
I think we're adequately supplied with PPE at this point in time. There have been challenges. I won't say we still have availability of affordable PPE. They've definitely jacked the prices up really high on everything from masks to gloves, but we have what we need. The tests are becoming available. We just got into our facility last Friday, the rapid tests and equipment. Now it takes us about a week to get those validated and put into place. It's really the people who run the tests. It's the people who swab the noses. And that is something you cannot pull out of a hat. And so, you know, I hear this from other hospitals too. The main stress at this point is having employees to provide the testing, to staff the testing tents, to run the tests. So.
Okay, thank you.
So don't socialize with them. If they want to socialize with you, don't socialize with them. That's what I have to say.
Tawny.
I don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment to Jen. I spent a little bit of time at the hospital yesterday, and I was absolutely impressed. Absolutely, just impressed with the professionalism that was shown and the care to make sure that everybody was safe and did what they were supposed to do. And there's those girls at the front desk can crack that whip when people misbehave. So I was just very impressed, and your team is doing a really good job.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really proud of them. And we've actually had to put several children of employees in positions at that front desk. It's like trying to get warm bodies. So their moms are nurses. They're probably used to the whip being cracked pretty hard.
Now there was one slow learner that did not understand what 6 feet meant, and they kept on him. They were really good.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jen or professional Brady? Thank you both so much for joining. And again, big thank you from all of us for the work that you've done up until this point, and sounds like the work that we're gonna continue to do for a little while until we have our vaccine in place and distributed and received. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. And then I'm on another agenda item. May I just go back in the waiting room or go to stop video? Okay.
I will just put you back in the waiting room. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. It looks like, okay, so we're now continuing our administrative reports. And I think we are still on COVID updates. Joel, take it away.
Mayor, I think they did a really good job. The only update we really have as a city is everything status quo. The city hall still closed to the public. We're still working. Other than what they've shared, I mean, that's about where we're at. So if you just want to follow down the admin reports list, I'm actually 4.6, and I'll just go at the end.
Okay. For 2, wastewater reclamation facility update. OB, welcome. Thanks for joining us virtually tonight.
Hi.
Take it away, OB.
Oh, yeah, so Joel wanted me to talk about some capacity concerns we had recently. When we switched to the new plant, Greg, the person that had my position before me, and then when I took over, noticed that it looked like we were getting more flow than we had from the previous plant. We had the Bowen Collins, the people that did the estimates, look at that. What they did is they kind of looked at the volumes going into each of our tanks and did a bunch of math and showed that the meters were just off. At this point, we are running about 1 million gallons per day, like as an average for the year. Once we get to 1.5, then we'll need a new SBR. That's estimated to be like a 20-year time frame. Other than that, the collections guys are doing a lot of camera work, and then the plant's running in compliance. Any questions?
So Obi, you guys replaced the meters or what?
We're running, there's an effluent meter, and we're using the effluent meters right now. So the effluent meters dovetail pretty well with the math on the tanks. And so we kind of use the effluent meters for all of our calculations.
Okay, so you still have the erroneous, forgive me, I don't want, never mind, Obi, we don't have time for all this, but thank you, appreciate it.
Mhm.
Obi, are you open to having Mike or any other interested council members come and ask technical questions?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Come on down.
Okay.
Okay.
Ronnie?
No, I just had a question for Joel and Obi. Like, would it be possible for Obi to come, like maybe quarterly and just kind of tell us how it's going? Because I know once we get more people in town, you know, people have the same questions about capacity, like how are we doing on those really busy days? And then I think you guys all got the email I did about a concerned resident about odors the last 4 or 5 months. And I don't know if we can pinpoint what that is. I know our problem used to be septage, but I didn't know, Obi, if you had been noticing anything or if you have any input for people on what might be extra smelly.
It's sewer.
Okay, I didn't know if anything had changed or if there was something that might be contributing to that.
Yeah, Ronnie, if you forgive me, I think I know because the respondent, this resident that you're talking about, wrote another letter to me and said she'd gotten in touch with the wastewater treatment
Oh,
plant.
great. Okay.
And you guys told her apparently that it was, concentrated sewage from the BLM, the time that they drop it off, and that you didn't have a way of processing that off immediately, so it was stored in tanks where it might sit for a few days, and it was apparently leakage from those tanks, or fumes from that tank anyway, was generating the smells in the nearby neighborhood, if I understood it correctly.
Yeah, I believe that was Mark that told that person that. So septage is going to be the smelliest thing we deal with. Yeah, I mean, it is concentrated and it smells really bad whenever they're putting it into the septage holding basin or whenever we're pumping it out of the septage holding basin. Earlier this year, we had some of the plants was kind of upset, so there's an additional smell there too. But I mean, those are all normal things that are going to happen.
Thank you.
I just had one other question. I had someone who walks in the sloughs ask me about, sometimes they're hiking or, past, you have the outfall pipe there. And, sometimes you just see completely clear water coming out there, but sometimes, they feel like it's brown. And I know there are certain circumstances that can cause that to happen, but do you want people to contact you when you see that, or you probably know that it's happening?
We're going to know when it's happening.
People know. Okay.
Yeah, we know. So
from a public.
So through the early summer into like summer, the plant, we had some pretty major problems with the plant. We had to chlorinate. And yeah, so it was, we were borderline failing for quite a while. We've got that all back in line, but yeah, it was, we weren't as clean as we normally are, but it was passing.
Okay, well, thanks for explaining that. And thanks for explaining about the septage. And maybe as we go along here, you and Joel can let us know. I mean, I feel like one of the things we were told when we were told about the new plant was, one of the problems we had with septage in the past was the belt press and everything, and it'll be better moving forward. So if there's something you guys come up with that we can help with, let us know.
It's definitely better. I mean,
you would know better than I. So yeah, thanks.
Karen? You're muted.
Sorry. Obi, how often are you dealing with BLM septage? Like, do they drop it off once a week, or is it a?
And so it's not just the BLM; it's all septage. But several times a week through the spring, summer, and fall, they kind of stop hauling in the winter. So we don't deal with it as much in the winter. But spring, summer, and fall, a lot, several times a week.
Between all of the providers, Obi, is it daily?
Yeah, we deal with it daily. Through Monday through Friday. They work Monday to Friday, so not on the weekends as much.
And Obi, do you know like the volume? Let's say like at our peak weekend, like what you're processing on a busy day compared to a day in January?
You mean septage or the plant?
Or just the plant?
Yeah, so a peak day would be like 1.2 or 1.25 million gallons per day. And this plant has a 2 million gallon per day maximum, like as a daily maximum. Mm-hmm. As a month, we're probably, actually that's a lie. We'd be 1.4 or 1.5 1.5 as a daily maximum average. As a monthly average, it'd be like 1.2 would be a really big month. And then, like I said, for the year, and so all of this is based off of like 1 year of data, right? Because the plant's fairly new.
Right.
And for a day, for a yearly average in 2019, because you can't really count this year, right? Was about 1 million gallons per day when you average like every day throughout the whole year. So, and then in the winter, to finish answering your question, in the winter, we're talking about 0.71, it's like 3/4 million gallons, maybe a little bit less would be a monthly average. And we have some days that are just really, really slow in the winter.
One last related question to that, Obi. So, we talk about 20 more years till maybe needing another batch regulator. I think that's what it's called. Because I've had some people ask me, okay, we have some things that aren't online yet, right? Like we have these new condos that aren't full of people yet. We have some new hotels that aren't full of people yet. We have, Lines Back at which at some point, I don't know how long it'll take to be full of people, but so you still think, I have to do the math, so maybe it's a dumb question, but you're not concerned about any of that, right? Because there's also been the question of bringing on some people across the river.
Not really. If I could share my screen, I can show you a graph that that was given to me by Bowen Collins.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So if you see this graph, this was put together by them, I believe in 2016 or 2015, somewhere in that time frame when they were building the plant, basically. And this was their projections of when we would need a new plant. The dots are observed flows, and then these bar, the bar graph is flows that they projected. Some of these, like, so USU didn't come on till, USU isn't on yet at all, right? Like they're just starting to build.
Yeah.
San Juan County came on last year. So we haven't seen these flows yet, right? So 2019, if you follow that up right here, we're actually quite a bit lower than their projections. So we're probably further out the need for that to build that. So and they did clarify that we need to have it built before we get to 1.5 million gallons. So, that's he said about 3 years for design and for construction. But like even on this one where they put us at 2036, so we're probably 2040 or further. But it's something you just watch, right? Like this is just a projection. Once we start getting closer on a yearly average, 1.4 or better, then we need to start talking about that last SBR. But
okay, so even if we don't have an average annual flow over at 1.5, before we could handle a day peak over 1.5 before we have another.
Yeah. So the day peak is 2 million gallons.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay.
We handle a flow up to 2 million gallons per day, and then a monthly peak of 1.75.
Thank you. Okay.
And so that we will see spikes like so we're putting it into a set amount, right? Like the flow it goes into a set amount of tank, right? So if we have a flash amount of flow for some reason, like the Super Bowl flush, they call it, right? Then yeah, we'll have some issues, but we can deal with that at the plant.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Obi?
No follow-ups on the Super Bowl flush?
Yeah.
Everyone's good with that?
Is that like on the Super Bowl, everybody goes to the bathroom at the same time because of the
halftime?
Halftime.
Got it. Probably not as big of a concern in Moab.
No.
But I do appreciate.
We have a Jeep Safari flush.
Yeah, right. But I do appreciate the Broncos poster behind you. All right. Well, we'll move on. Thanks again for joining us tonight, Obi, and for your patience in waiting for your agenda item. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
Happy holidays. Okay, next up, agenda item 4.3, Planning Department update. Nora, coming to us from.
Hello.
Hello.
Spaced out today. So I don't have an awful lot to report. I just wanted to let you know that I have begun to work on the changes to the development code, the land use piece of the the direction that you gave us on with OHV with the included a piece about amending our code to not allow new ATV, UTV in the various zones. And I have reached out to the and am hoping that we can coordinate so that we have similar language. It seems to make sense. She is out sick, so I haven't really been able to coordinate with her, but hopefully I will soon. But I've gathered, the state information, the definitions and all that, and in the middle of preparing some code amendments that hopefully we can talk about in January. So that's kind of the big thing. We continue pretty busy with everyday calls and inquiries, and some smaller projects, smaller subdivisions. We continue to have discussions with land structure issues. We have not yet received that first application for the first phase, but we expect to. And they're working on it. So we have had contact with them. We've also had contact from the Sittler USU property. So it's the areas surrounding the new campus. And there's a design firm that has contacted us just with some real preliminary questions about utilities and process and some of those kinds of things. So I think that we will begin to see that. We'll begin to see some applications in that area too for some development in the relatively near future. So we'll keep you posted. No applications yet, just real preliminary conversations. Anything else?
Thank you for that update. It's helpful to know where we are. Questions from the council? Okay, Nora, thanks for waiting. Your turn.
No problem. I'll be back.
Oh, that's right. We'll see you soon. Later in the agenda. Okay. Next item, 4.4, Finance Department update. Clint, welcome.
Thank
back.
you. I'm going to share my screen really quick. All right. So what I'm going to do really quick tonight is give you just a COVID update. With this, I want to let you know what we plan on doing. I'll do a budget update on our next meeting next week because we plan on doing the budget amendment on next Friday and also doing another budget amendment in January as well. The one on Friday I'll let Joel speak to when he presents here shortly. So COVID update, where we're at. Sales tax. So I sent you guys out what our numbers were for November. November, which is September's actuals, was Moab's biggest ever sales tax month. We could be throwing a party, I guess, if it wasn't due to COVID, but maybe COVID is the reason that we had such a big month. Town was busy. You can see in the chart there that basically since September, we've been trending above our last 3 years in terms of sales tax. And I would project that's at least going to continue through December and January as town still seems to me as though it's busier than it has been in the past for these last couple months. But yeah, so that November numbers 1.221 million compared to last November of 1.5 million. So this slide basically is just comparing our COVID months per se from March up through November. You can see what we did, and this is all sales tax revenue as well. from 19 and 20. And you can see April, May, June, July, and August. I mean, we were hit pretty heavily. And we started to recover sales tax wise in September, which was July actuals, as there's a 2-month lag. And yeah, things are headed, at least sales tax wise, in the right direction. You can see that October and November were 115% of our prior year. And yeah, that number has, our sales tax loss has decreased by about $330,000 just in the last 3 months. And we're trying to recoup what we've lost in those 5 months where we were hit the hardest. Kind of the last slide, since I'm trying to be quick, since there's so much on the agenda tonight. This is just kind of what I'll try to explain this next meeting, and I can send out any details that you guys would like. That revenue loss is that previous slide. That's March through November. You can see it's $1.1 million comparative to the prior year. And with all the savings and, the spending freeze, everything else that Joel and the team has put into place, and our expense on just the general fund, we spent $1 million between, this isn't November, the revenue portion is March through November. This is March through October. We've saved $1 million prior to the, or compared to the previous year. So with that, there's a net loss of 114 if I'm just comparing the two. But I think the city's done a pretty good job of clamping down and saving and only spending money on things that they really need to. So that's kind of my quick presentation tonight, and I'll do some expense and revenue comparisons to budget when we do our budget amendments. Any questions?
Can we go ahead and unshare the screen?
Sorry you can't see my face tonight. But.
No worries. I think we can submit to you and Joel and the staff a big well done. Well done.
Thank you. I mean, I think everyone's done a great job.
The fact that we were able to tighten our belts and get through is just, and without any controversy. I mean, I can't say it with cake, but I can say it with words. Joel, well done.
Thank you, and staff as well.
Council, comments or questions?
I mean, I think the public really needs to understand how monumental this is. I mean, we were in a budget deficit before COVID, and now we're only $100,000 behind. That is, I can't, it's unbelievable, like the position that we're in. It is a huge thank you to you guys.
Well, and it's not at a loss of service to our community. We have still been operating at a level of service. An old boss used to say, keeping the trains running. We've been keeping the trains running and doing a great job. For sure. Other comments or questions at this time?
We cut initially $1.2 million out of our budget before COVID because of the shortfall we were in before we started. Then with COVID, we basically had to cut an additional 1.4. And so the fact that we're currently at 100,000 right there with the revenue returns we expect in November and December, we think we're going to be in the black by the end of the year.
Outstanding. Yeah. I mean, all I want to do is throw a barbecue.
You're gonna have to wait till July.
Oh, man.
I would have called, if anyone told me that 6 months ago, I would have called them a flat out liar, but it's where we're at. It's pretty amazing.
One thing I think we all overlooked is that with COVID, Moab's become even more popular than usual, because everybody wants to be outside figuring they're going to be safe. So this is a a great thing in that sense.
Yeah,
It
the
is.
revenue,
I think it's worth it to point out too that it looks like June and July we lost $1 million in revenue, and that was when we were, frightened the most, and we didn't know where we were going to be here in December. So to be where we are today, I'm very grateful, and I'm grateful to the business community too for their effort of staying safe to stay open. We really did a good job of keeping ourselves healthy. Well done. Any final words on this? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you, Clint. Thanks for joining us. 4.5, legal department update. Dun, dun, dun. Lori.
Sounds very ominous. It is just one topic that I'm presenting on tonight. And just as an educational matter about the Utah Department of Labor's Occupational Health and Safety Unit, the complaint process that they have rolled out regarding mask enforcement. So I think everyone's aware on August 18th, 2020, the Southeast Utah Health Department and the county jointly issued an order requiring face coverings. And as of 4 p.m. today, the Utah Department of Health has also reissued their order regarding face coverings. And the importance of that is not lost on anyone right now, given all the presentations we've had this evening. So what I wanted to talk about just was a little bit of information about the Utah Labor Department's emergency administrative rule. And essentially, this is occupational health and safety. It is a complaint process where someone can report if a business is not complying with the mask mandate. And it would work just like any other health complaint in the workplace, where the Utah Department of Labor would investigate. It's not an automatic violation. It would be something that would be investigated. They have a process where they contact, sometimes they do a site inspection. It would be the same process for any other type of complaint in the workplace. And the Utah Labor Commission is looking at trying to turn these around in 45 days. And if there are violations that could lead to a fine, it could lead to a criminal, it could lead to a Class B misdemeanor. But that is all through their normal protocols they have for any other type of health complaint or violation. So this was just to get some information out about that process and that new administrative rule that has come out. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any at this point.
Questions, Council? Ronnie?
Really random, Lori, but do they find it useful if you submit photographs?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that would be the main issue, because the question is, what were the circumstances, and I think that also would help inform the business itself as to what exactly was happening.
Thanks.
Lori, can we talk just a second, because I feel like there's still this anxiety around wearing a mask in public while exercising. So if someone were to be on a walk or even performing a job outside and with at least 6 feet of distance from them and another person, are masks required in that scenario, in those scenarios?
I believe there is an exception for when you are exercising, and that I mean, obviously you are encouraged to maintain 6 feet of distance even if you're exercising. But I can double check on that. But my initial reaction is that when you're exercising, there is an exception to wearing the face mask.
I just feel like there have been some people that have said, oh, they're not wearing a mask. They're not wearing a mask. And it's like, there's, if you know, and I don't want to discourage people from wearing a mask. I'm quite pro mask. I'm just also, I'm also very interested in just having a little more clarity around the, you know, parameters so that people can feel comfortable and confident. And, you know, if you see someone without a mask, well, if they're not within 6 feet of somebody, that's okay.
Well, so the issue with workplaces is that they are supposed to wear a mask. There's not a 6 foot. So let me get to your first question here. I'm looking at the most recent state public, the health department's order, and yeah, so there is an exception. It's under face mask exceptions is number 8, and I'm happy to share this. It is so Roman numeral 7. There is an exception for exercising or engaging in athletic training while outdoors or indoors and maintaining 6 feet of physical distance. So that if you are outdoors, there is an exception to the mask requirement while you're exercising. And then the issue with the workplace is for businesses, it merely says that you are to be wearing a face mask. It's restrictions on businesses, Roman numeral I from section 5. It is required each employee and contractor to wear a face mask while at work. So it does not also include an exception for six feet while at work, but I think that's it could be better phrased.
Okay. Thank you for trying to interpret that. Or at least reading what it says. Any other questions for Laurie or comments? Okay. We can move on. Thanks for sticking around with us. 4.6 CARES Act funding.
Okay, this one's me. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. I'm going to talk about this real quick. I have a few questions I need you to answer for me to give me a little bit of direction. And then I have some other things in the admin report I need to talk about. So let's get busy so we can move this thing along. We are going to do basically 2 programs with our CARES funding, one of which we're requesting that we put $100,000 in a pool that we use for a coupon program that I'm going to explain here in a second, and $100,000 for a grant program that we want to do. And so the coupon, everyone see my screen, would function with the coupons you see there that are in green. Every residence that is in the 84532 zip code would be set a voucher with these 3 $15 cards on them. And they have money value that then could be used at any registered business in city limits. Residents could use these cards at any of the registered businesses within city limits like their cash. They could go into Walker Drug and buy something and use $45 worth of coupons in there. They could go to any shop on Main Street, any restaurant, anyone who signs up with the city as a city business with the city business license. These can be redeemed as cash value in those stores. Those businesses will then turn that coupon back into the city, and we will reimburse for the $15 voucher that was used by the resident. So we're trying to get a double bang for our buck in a way, give the resident something to spend at the same time it goes to the local economy and is a stimulation for local business. And so that's what we're trying to do. The 2 questions I have for you on this program basically is 1, what is the period we want to run it through? And 2, is the $100,000 acceptable to council for approval through a budget amendment? As you can see on my screen, we have the copy of the coupons there that'll be sent out to everyone. We also have a letter that we've drafted up that we're going to send out to all the businesses as we work to try and get everyone signed up. And so we've talked about this as staff several times, and we have talked about the idea that, you know, right now a lot of the businesses on Main Street are closed or they shut down for the winter. And so we've talked about different windows we prefer to see this program operate. And kind of what we're thinking is basically, we think we should operate it from anywhere December 21st, from the time we can get the coupons out in the mail, through about March 1 is kind of what we're thinking is a projection. And so that way people can use them at any store. The problem that we have right now is some people have already closed for the winter. One thing we could do is we could offer them something like February 10th through the end of March, was everyone kind of reopens for President's Day, or we could offer them a shorter period of December through mid-January. The window is kind of open to your interpretation, and I want your guys' advice and counsel as to what you're looking and what you think would be the best time frame to try and use these coupons in that window. The coupons themselves are printed on heavy cardstock. They'll have perforation. They'll have laminate on a foil on each one. They'll be really, really hard to reproduce. People won't be able to copy them and use fraudulent ones. And also, as they come in, we as staff will have people dedicated who are keeping track of them every day. We'll keep records on everywhere they're spent, which businesses they're getting them, which businesses they're being used at. And we'll also keep a running total and an update, because once the pool is gone, we can close the event, and once the money is gone, and shut it down. So kind of what is the window do we think we want to do this program through is the main question I need you guys to give guidance on. Karen?
Joel spoke briefly, and I mean, I just think offering it before March, again, as encouragement for the businesses to actually, I mean, it's sort of a, hey, good job, you guys are staying open throughout the winter. I mean, there's, I think it's an incentive, to create shopping opportunities for our public and for businesses to stay open. So, I mean, I like the idea of, potentially, since it's brand new, most people, like we said, that they're gearing up for March. Easter is following early this year. So if businesses aren't ready to go by the second week in February, then they're going to be chasing tail for a long time. So I think at least the first part of February to, the latest is like the first week in March. I mean, because you also that's when we get an influx of so many tourists as well. And so, I mean, it's not that you don't want local business, but I mean, you're kind of in a crazed situation with everybody else coming.
So we could do something like that, Karen, where we get them out as soon as possible, December 21st, 2nd, 3rd, as soon as we possibly can, and run the program through March 1. I mean, that's absolutely something we can do. Ronnie?
Have you had a chance to get any feedback either from the chamber or from the Main Street Business Alliance? I just didn't know. It is kind of delicate, like you say. Like, we started it right away on the 21st. I can imagine there being businesses saying, I just heard about this and I didn't have time to get on the list. Or I didn't know if they can, add after the fact, and there's a running list online. So if they didn't end up adding till January 1st, someone could theoretically still use their $15 at that business. I guess I'm just wondering, I understand this is a benefit to the community, but like you're saying, some people, I'm just trying to give people ample time to participate too. I just didn't know if any of them had feedback for us.
So as of right now, we've not signed up any businesses because we wanted to flesh out this last part of what the window was looking like. As far as a running list, as long as they have a business license occurring, if we started it now and it went through March 1 and a business is currently closed and they wanted to come in because of this program or any other reason and open up and come in and get on the list, I don't know why I would be opposed to adding.
Okay, gotcha. So they don't have to be on some list starting December 21st necessarily. They just need to have a business license. And do you think it helps people listening to this at all? So, I mean, this really is anyone with a business license. So it's not just like you're going to go in and buy some retail item. It could also be for a service, right? Like you could use it towards a haircut, or you could use it towards a veterinary visit, or I don't know what, but theoretically.
Yeah, we talked about that at length, and as far as staff was concerned, if you had a city issued business license and you were located in the city, services were welcome as well. So if you wanted to go to a provider, a rec provider, and get a gift card for a service that you'd use in June for a family outing or something, yeah, I mean, to us, it's no different than a retail store. So.
Okay, and I guess it's kind of an honor system. Like if your buddy says, "I'm not going to use mine," and you show up at the store with 6, it's kind of up to the store to take them or not. Okay.
$45 free. I wouldn't give my buddy $45 free.
Thank you.
Connie?
Do we have a time limit where that money has to be spent?
So we have ran this program. Several cities in northern Utah have done this. We're not reinventing this wheel. I wish I was smart enough that I could take credit for this whole program, but I'm not. We ran this program through the league. We ran it through several other cities who are doing it. The way we're using our CARES funding, this is actually our money that we're using to do this program, not CARES funding that we're using to do this program. Because of CARES funding going towards CARES spending that's allowed, it's allowing us to do so, because the problem with the CARES funding is the December 30 deadline. And so it became so problematic to try and do something that was so helpful for all the residents and all the businesses in the time frame. We chose to put the CARES funding into a form that was allowable, pull the money that was being used for that form out, and basically use that as our CARES funding without the deadline. And so that's what we're doing. And so CARES funding is making this program possible. This is technically not CARES funding that we're using for the program.
Okay.
And Joel, just a quick, I mean, I didn't really hear much discussion about, let's say it was $50,000 worth of this, and then, $50,000 towards utilities or something. I mean, is that?
So this is one aspect of what we're doing. It's $100,000 we want to put in this pot, and then the additional $100,000 we wanted to put into a grant program where governmental entities, non-for-profits, people who have been adversely affected in those areas could seek a grant. We looked into doing some utility relief from what we have had in the city, and it was minuscule of what was needed. I mean, it was such a small amount that the programs we already have are working to cover that as it is. It was so small. The problem with this funding is it came so late. I mean, it's October, November, December. It came so late in COVID that people had been in the problem 6 months and they had already paid up their bills. They had gotten back up with their utilities because they couldn't wait a year for this parachute to come and help them out. So by the time we actually got this funding and we went and started pulling our numbers for what our utility back payment was, it was pretty non-existent at that point. Ronnie.
In general, you asked if we're comfortable with the amounts, and I think I would be if you explained to me one more time, just because you did, but I'm forgetful. When we had our meeting last time, we discussed we might have like $100,000 of CARES Act, funding to make available to businesses or something. But now effectively, it sounds like we're talking about 200,000 between businesses and nonprofits. And can you just remind me the logic of how that works? And I understand this is CARES Act money, but you know what I mean.
Hard work is the logic. We got the money initially and we started trying to figure out what we could do with it. And when we were working under the subset of rules that we understood at the beginning, and we were trying to get this out, this has been so fast and furious that was the framework of what we had. The more we got into this and the more we read the rules, deeper and deeper into the rules and highlighted and talked to more people and understood it more, it's just like anything else. You got better at figuring out ways to do it. And so by the time we got done and figured out how we could spend the money and use our money to do the program, all of a sudden the deadlines were gone. And so before, the fear was we got to get the money out the door before the deadline, and this is going to get really tight. We can't risk losing the money. And so that's why we were worried about how we were doing it before. Once we figured a way to do this the way we're doing it now, with the deadline not necessarily being there because we're spending our money, all of a sudden it became we have the ability to kind of take our time and do a little bit more. And the other thing that changed, Ronnie, is Clint gave you that update, and that deficit has shrunk. And as we've gotten more and more revenue, and we expect our revenues to be similar for November and December, we expect to be in the black. So we're going to be fine with all of it. And this is money that we can use to help the community that through the CARES funding has enabled us to do that.
Okay, thanks. I think that all makes sense to me. I don't really have a feeling about March. I don't really know if I care if it's the beginning of March or the end of March. I don't know if there's some businesses for the type of business they do. They might not have folks doing whatever they do till then. So yeah, and just so I'm clear, so it's not like I would take my $15 and I would take it to the Multicultural Center and say, you know, I just want to donate this $15 to you, right? That the nonprofit end is more intended for that sort of thing. And this is really for business licenses.
That's an excellent question. Mayor, do you want to talk about
The Multicultural Center has a business license.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm sure that they would be happy to receive bucks as a donation.
Okay, so that's a great thing for people to know that theoretically they could use their bucks on, I guess, nonprofits. Okay, thanks.
Or they could go buy gift cards and donate gift cards to the nonprofit if they chose.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Spending $1 3 ways.
Tani's logic would spend it 3 ways. If you did that, the resident could spend it, the business could get the revenue, and then the gift card could go to the non-for-profit.
So I just want to speak to your concerns about businesses already being closed. They still have the capacity to sell gift certificates, and businesses that are closed that are seasonal and like tourism based, whether it's rental company or service, you know, taking people climbing or biking, they're taking bookings right now. And so you could also, many of the businesses that are maybe closed door still are open phone line. And so I would just encourage in our communication to our businesses that, you know, these bucks can be spent. And so for that reason, I very much support getting these bucks out as soon as possible for Christmas spending and winter spending for our residents.
Is that consensus? Is that good?
It seems like there's head wobbling, but I think Joel would like a thumbs up. Does that sound good?
That works for me.
The distribution and the time frame sound good to folks?
So
Yeah.
we're gonna have a meeting next Friday at noon for the water information that we've talked about, and we're also going to just have a budget adjustment at that meeting for allotting these 2 pots of money to be used this way. So that'll be on that meeting on next Friday at noon.
Which brings us probably to your next item, your general administrative report item of the next meeting.
I will be really quick. We have the OHV speed limit signs. We got them today with the poles. So they're going to start going up. The water issue that we had the other day, we had a pressure regulator valve go up on 4th East. As we fixed the first break, because the regulator valve wasn't fixed yet, because the lines are so old, they were not cracking, they were just blowing, it just blew the line out. As soon as we fixed it, it blew it out further down the line. As soon as we fixed it, it blew it further out down the line. At that point, we just let it leak out until we could get the pressure valve fixed up above. It should have never happened if we had a more updated system. We were running about 130 PSI. We should easily be able to run 200 in a current system. So, you know, again, our aging infrastructure costs us more money to keep patching it and playing with it. But that's what happens. I want to thank the water department. The water department was out all night long on that job. They didn't get off till 7 a.m. the next morning, 20 degrees, standing in knee-deep water. So I can't thank them enough. And then the streets crew has really been helping out at Walnut Lane, and they've been down there and they've cleaned up all the weeds, and it looks as good as I think it can look for what we bought. So I want to thank the streets crew for all that they're doing in the water department and public works. So that's it, Mayor. The rest can wait till next one.
Do you want to talk about the meeting on the 18th?
The meeting on the 18th? Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do that opening, the budget opening. We're going to do appoint some vacancies for the Water Board Planning Commission, and we're gonna have a water resource discussion in depth about what is out there and what we're working with.
So council, that means we are going to be scheduling a meeting December 18th on Friday. We're looking at starting it at noon. That way, Tawny, you're able to attend at least the first part of it. And we will put the funding first for alliteration purposes, but also so that Tawny, you can participate in that.
I'm off on Friday, so
Oh.
the time doesn't really matter.
Right. That's right. So still starting at 12, Joel, or should we
Yeah.
then move it to 1?
12 is what we've noticed it at, unless, does that work for everyone?
No.
Mike, no? What works for you, Mike?
Well, I'm confused now because I had tentatively on my schedule a meeting to talk about water issues that I thought was scheduled for the 16th. Chuck was involved and Carly
That's
was
what I had
involved.
too.
Same meeting. We had scheduling conflicts with the 16th.
Well, I can't make the 18th, guys. I've already made plans to make a rush trip to do Christmas presents clear to Denver and back.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be on the road too. I can see if I can call in.
Well, I can see what we can do about putting it back to the 16th. But the 16th is
Was there
not-
an issue about a public hearing, Joel?
Well, there's two ways to approve the expenditure. The way we would prefer for transparency reasons would require a public hearing and allow public to have input before we approve the expenditures we just talked about. As John told you in his department or in his report, if it's monies that were approved in the original budget that we're just moving, we don't legally have to have a public hearing. So we don't have to have a public hearing. We could do it on the 16th. We could move the money without a public hearing. This council has really echoed transparency and take steps above and beyond what's required. And so we were trying to get a 7-day notice public hearing in on that expenditure, even though we probably don't have to. But that's up to you guys.
I think I could call. I just don't know if I'll have an internet signal that's good.
Yeah, I can definitely do the 16th. I'm not sure about the 18th for similar travel reasons.
And I'm fine with it being the 16th as long as you guys as the council understand that, like, why we were trying to do the 18th, and if we move it back to the 16th, if everyone's okay with doing a budget amendment without the public hearing, because it's not required, as long as we all understand that's what we're doing, then I'm fine with that. If we're requiring the budget, if we're requiring a public hearing for our own accord, then I got to have a 7-day window and the paper comes out tomorrow. We do have the notice in the paper for tomorrow. But I could maybe move it to the 17th if that works better. But the problem with that is the notice isn't going to be accurate. So
I can do the 17th.
the 16th through the 17th, 6s. So it's up to you guys.
I can't do the 17th.
Yeah.
So the 16th is what I'm hearing, but we won't have a public hearing. We'll just amend the budget without the public hearing, and everyone's comfortable with that.
Well, let me ask you, Joe, the budget amendment, is this one just to take care of the water sewer rates changes?
No, this budget amendment is solely to fund those two programs we just talked about. That's all
Oh,
it is.
okay. Yeah, I got you. Well, let me ask you, Joe. I mean, just, what's going to show up in the newspaper? We're going to have a whole host of irate residents climbing down our back because we didn't tell them, kind of thing. It sounds like this one is more benign. I mean, we got extra money to spend, and how to spend it. So I can't anticipate too much anger, if you will, in the newspaper about why didn't you have another public hearing that wasn't required? That's my guess.
Well, like I said, I mean, I'm happy to call in Friday. I just don't know how my Wi-Fi will be.
Well, I think I really want everyone to be able to participate because of the water conversation as well. So I don't want to lose focus just on the budget opening. Like that's the sole purpose. The 16th is perfectly reasonable and it's perfectly legal. It's just a question of if that's what process we want to take as a council.
Well, let me throw this out, Joe, while I got you guys online. My part in this meeting on the 16th, the water board's been going around, and I've kind of written what may well be a defining presentation in my term on council of kind of collected all the water resource issues from 3 different studies, the 35-page PowerPoint, 35-slide PowerPoint presentation, in which I'm going to present what those studies say and encourage, now I'm getting an echo all of a sudden, and encourage council to take up sometime next year some infrastructure and ordinances to start metering or installing what could be very loose quotas this year. But the point is, we're getting close to reaching safe yield. It hasn't been determined. And it's the water. So I titled the whole presentation, Moving to a Water Restricted Future. That's what it's all about. If you guys want to put that off, we certainly can.
We don't have to put it off. There's another option as well. We could keep the meeting on the 16th and have the water meeting, and we could have a really quick meeting on the 18th to just have the public hearing and approve the budget amendment and then be done with that meeting. Summer's going to kill me, but you guys can attend and then deal with my ashes as you wish.
I guess I would be more comfortable with that. I don't know if that works for people. And like I said, I'd be on the phone, but it would be for that budget item.
So I'm feeling sort of more discomfort with my own lack of documentation for me about this budget amendment. Like, so far it's been mainly verbal. Like, rather than just having a notice in the paper that we're going to talk about this stuff and then the agenda and packet drops a couple days beforehand, I'd like to see the information on the proposed amendment like published a week out, the actual contents rather than the public notice, because I feel like nobody reads the public notices. Like, if the press is watching and they pick up on this conversation and they write about it, then people will pay attention. But just put it in the paper, I don't feel like.
So if this was a normal budget, we weren't talking about money that had already been appropriated, I'm required to put it in the paper for 7 days prior to the adoption of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so where it's already appropriated, we're not required to do that at all. So we're defaulting back to that rule, and that's the rule we're following. Our idea was that we were going to drop the agenda on Monday before the meeting on Friday. And so that's the window we were looking at. It just takes time to prepare materials, and we're trying to do this thing as fast as we can on top of what we're doing. It's just so many hours in a day.
Okay. And then as far as the water goes, was the intention for us to hear Mike's proposal, or was it to review the phase whatever of the, I forget who's the consultant's name.
Ken Colm.
Yeah.
Carly, do you want to talk about that?
So what we had in mind is to present, I guess, the status of the water literature for this area. So Chuck was going to present sort of the update on the Ken Colm reports, which aren't totally complete. We will have phases 3 and 4. Phase 5 is still in development, as well as some of the work by USGS and a paper done by Dr. Gardner. And then have a discussion about some water conservation priorities, as well as, I think, what I'll generally call water resource planning priorities for the next year. I think high level, generally, we can dig into details if you want to, but just to set the stage for some of these more ambitious efforts, such as Councilmember Duncan's ideas, and setting that stage so we can start to develop policy and ordinances in the next year. Is that helpful for what we had in mind?
Yes. Yeah. That all sounds like a really important topic to take up.
Yes, there might be many meetings on it. This
right.
is
Like, as you're describing it, I'm not sure if, like, I mean, next week would be good, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure if there's much difference between then and early January unless there's some deadline.
That is also a possibility. I think we chose December as a goal. There's no particular urgency, except that there's lots of work to do. So
yeah.
So what was the consensus then? You guys wanted 2 meetings in, and one on the 18th to talk about budget, and then the water
So
one
what
on
I'm
the...
hearing, yeah. what I'm hearing is that we do need, the critical meeting that we need to set is for the budget amendment. And I am hearing that having materials together for both council and for public is priority. And that we want to have plenty of time for all of us to be able to view it. And is the idea that we would have a public hearing and then vote that same day that we have the public hearing, right after, we would vote right after on this budget amendment. And that we wouldn't be able to do that before Friday. So
No, Friday at noon.
Friday at noon.
Mhm.
So that sounds like that's that for Friday noon. The meeting will be a public hearing, and then the agenda item as is that new business? Because this is just us talking about scheduling it.
Yeah. We want to
and
postpone the water conversation.
Well, hold on, and we would be voting on, I just want to make sure everyone's comfortable with having a public hearing and then voting on that same agenda item as new business at the meeting. Yes, council, good?
Can we, I was just curious, can we do it on the 21st of the Monday?
The problem we had was when we started getting into how this was going to work, we had to get something to the paper for the public noticing, like ASAP. We didn't have time to like try and figure this all out because the deadline for publishing in the paper had already came in when we had to call the paper and say, will you hold us a spot for us to get you something? So we picked Friday at noon because it tends to be a time that you guys are more available than other days. The problem is if we pick a different day, Karen, the noticing in the paper is incorrect.
So who can't make Friday? Raise your hand if you can't make Friday.
If we want it, here's the thing, if we want to move it, if we want to cancel it and move it to a different day and just start the program later, we can absolutely do that. Or we can not have a public hearing and do it the other way. There's several options. It's just a matter of what procedure we want.
Well, I think we have a quorum for Friday. So as long as between Ronnie and Kaylin, we can figure this out, I think we'll have a quorum. So Kaylin, what does this mean?
It just means that there's uncertainty in my departure time and internet availability. So sort of like Ronnie.
Where are you guys traveling anyways?
Camping in Arizona, very distant. So
you would be able to call in, you don't have to Zoom, you could call.
Yeah, just that headed south, even that can be
Yeah.
But it seems
it's
like
noticed, and so it is what it is what I'm hearing from you, Joel.
Well,
and if we don't have a quorum,
I feel like you guys feel like I pressured you into this moment. It wasn't like we picked this for any particular reason. We've literally just been working under this time crunch, and in order to try and be able to get this out before Christmas, this was it. Like it had to be in the paper, had to be to the paper basically yesterday. And if we push it back to next week, the next paper doesn't. This is why we got to get the noticing change in this year's legislature, which is a part of our conversation later that Kaylin and I have talked about. But if we push it back to next week, the next paper doesn't come out to the 17th, which means we can't do it before the 24th, which is a holiday, which that doesn't work, which then puts it back into the following week of the 28th. Like if we didn't get it in the paper yesterday, then literally we were going to lose 2 to 3 weeks.
so. I'm okay without the public hearing, and I think that between Ronnie and myself, we can probably have a quorum.
And if there's no public hearing, then we can do the meeting any day next week.
Yeah.
I only have to have the meeting Friday at noon if you want to hold the public hearing.
I think it's just good process to have it.
We wanted to give you the option of holding it, and this was the only way to reserve a spot, basically.
So basically, we're having a public hearing to give every community member in the city and the county $45 worth of coupons.
Yep.
I mean, essentially, but you're having a public hearing to appropriate $100,000 for a Communities Cares Grant program and $100,000 for a community business stipend.
Okay.
Let me see by show of thumbs who, or hands, who doesn't want a public hearing. Or I'll put it this way, doesn't think a public hearing is necessary for this agenda.
Well, I express that sentiment, but I hear what everybody else is saying. I understand that as well.
All right, so we're gonna move forward with a public hearing.
Friday noon.
Okay, so it's Friday. And hopefully we can make it. And Mike, maybe you'll be able to call in?
No.
Or
I'm gonna be
absolutely no?
No, I'm going to be on the highway.
So we'll postpone the water discussion. The only thing that we'll be doing is the budget in the public hearing.
Still going to be on the road.
Okay, so we
want to do the water discussion on the 16th. I mean, I'm fine with that. I had it on my calendar.
It's up to you guys. We can put it off. I mean, I'd like to get it introduced to you because it's a big sea change in the way the town thinks. So the earlier the better, but it's not the end of the world if we don't do it Wednesday. Okay.
If it works for staff, I'd like to do it Wednesday, just because this can be kind of a slow month for us, and just.
I agree. So can we do water Wednesday noon? We also have the water board and planning commission board appointments that we can add to that meeting, which will take not much time.
I probably won't make it at noon on Wednesday, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, because you also have the option of watching it on YouTube later. Okay, so we're going to keep the meeting Wednesday noon for appointments and water. And then Friday noon, we will notice a public hearing and a vote on a budget amendment to spend CARES dollars in the community. Good. All right. Are you done with your report then, Joel?
Absolutely.
Can I ask Joel a question? I have an administrative question.
Sure.
Joel, I apologize. I was just curious if anyone has signed up for the TPA, the Technical Planning Assistant through UDOT, that grant. Like, has that been discussed with your staff?
Not that I'm aware. Carly, are you aware of that?
The TPA, this is the first I'm hearing of it?
Yeah.
It was Ronnie mentioned it a couple weeks ago. It was like the funding for, it's a program to provide technical assistance to communities that are experiencing rapid growth and the lack of the resources to carry out planning projects.
I will 100% figure it out.
It's due Friday though.
I will 100% figure it out before Friday.
Okay, I'll send you the link. I'm sorry, I just buzzed up on my. What's that?
Can you send it to me as well, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Then Chuck may be doing something with it. I don't know.
That's what I was.
Yeah. So if you send it to me, I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move on to section 5, mayor and council reports. We are at 8:40, so I'm gonna just ask council to be brief. I will go first. And I know that it's been it's been a month since we met before, so maybe we don't have to dig too deeply into each what happened at each meeting, but rather that we attended. Let's see. I attended the Grand County Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I just want to report that grant application period has closed. Additional CARES Act funding that's through the county coming to our community. I served as a panelist sharing community perspectives on amenity migration and the concept of Zoom towns. I saw that Kaylin was in attendance, so hopefully I did a good job in representing our community. I attended a League of Cities and Towns meeting, the LPC, Legislative Policy Committee, Water Quality Board meeting, the GoEd COVID Resources Subcommittee, although that's coming to a closure too, unless there's more funding that comes to us to spend. The Commission on Housing Affordability Rural Subcommittee is really digging in deep on legislation and proposed legislation for rural communities. That's very exciting. Student of the Month celebration, the Moab Community Collaborative, Mill Creek Community Collaborative survey results are in. We're analyzing them. The group is going to come up with a recommendation and bring it back to the community. So soon on that. I also wanted to share that I met with the Make Moab Quiet Again group to kind of inform how we're moving forward with UTV legislation, which we'll talk about later. And finally, I just wanted to say thanks to the Chamber for their event pivot to make this past weekend still holiday fun and festive for the Moab community. That's it from me. Ronnie?
I'll try to be brief. I had a System of Care Regional Advisory Committee for Grand Canyon and Grand County and San Juan County on November 18th. And just ever so briefly, I don't know if it's still open, but at the time we had a peer support position open. So if someone's looking for a job, you can look up System of Care. They're continuing to identify children and families who'd benefit from their program and the associated high fidelity wraparound program, and looking for more youth to be on that advisory committee. We had our last EMS board meeting on November 16th, and we've had some email updates since, so ever so briefly. At that time, we were about 4% behind our calls for the previous year. EMS had gone through the steps to do some rapid COVID testing in-house for law enforcement and other first responders. And I haven't gotten an update about whether they're affected like the hospital with that, or if they're able to offer that, but that was cool. And my last report, they did get $75,000 in CARES Act funds from the county. So when we get on to discussing our own things, that's what I know about that. Our CIB loan is now closed, and they have started moving forward with an excavation permit from the city on the new building and are in the process of getting the final building permit. And just some other time when we have more time, there's some cool community paramedic work going on with Dr. Mack at the hospital. And other than that, I just felt like I owe the community a brief word on the fact that we did learn from the local papers that there had been some vandalism at the chapel on Locust Lane of the Church of Latter-day Saints. And I just think it's important that we as elected leaders say that there's no place for vandalism or hatred towards people of any faith or people who are atheists in our community. So I just felt that needed to be said. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Ronnie. Mike, you're muted.
Sorry, the water that I've talked about already, the email streams going on with Cliff Kuntz in particular, UTV noise again. He's acknowledged that, he says that to make a UTV as quiet as a passenger car is not that many dB difference. That's what he says. So I sort of challenged to say, why then couldn't UTVs be made and built that way over a period of time to give people a chance to refit their vehicles and so forth? So I'm waiting to hear back from him. That's my front on that. And finally, oh yeah, street stuff. You're aware, Emily and Kaylin, that I did a little more work in incorporating some of your suggestions into a quantitative way of estimating what sidewalks should be allowed, should be required, and whether or not. So that's about it.
Thank you, Mike. And thanks for your deep dive in the sidewalk, the work that you have done. I am so, so grateful. So grateful. Okay, next is Tawny.
Okay, I attended a museum board meeting that was a lot of just administrative stuff. They did install a new board of trustees and adopted a land acknowledgement statement. They have worked on staff has worked on getting feedback from visitors over October and November, and they've made some changes to the displays. Some are in the process because items needed to be ordered, and We are, let's see. Oh, they did update and amended their bylaws, and the most substantial changes that they just redefined what a quorum was. Is a simple majority versus a hard number. I attended a housing authority meeting. One of the board members reapplied for her own seat and she was roundly approved. Today I drove through Wingate Village and also past Arroyo Crossing, and they are both moving along. Arroyo Crossing, or I'm sorry, Wingate Village is sort of out behind the KOA campground, but and it's pretty obvious which ones they are. There are some multifamily homes and some single family homes, and they're all self-help and they're all about in the same stage of completion, and they look really good. Arroyo Crossing, the streets are being paved, the bike path is in, it looks like the drainages are in. And it's kind of interesting to watch that take shape. And there had been some questions about if people were going to balk at Arroyo Crossing being held by a land trust versus owning the land under their property. They've reached out to about 35 to 38 people. A couple just said that's not what I'm looking for. Not so much because they didn't own the land, more because they wanted a larger lot size. And most of the people that would be potential homeowners out there have been really supportive of the land trust and the whole concept that it's a way to keep affordability within the community. And they haven't experienced as many problems as they thought that they might. And what that has enabled them to do is help far more low and very low income people become homeowners. And let's see. I love it when I can't read my own writing. That's pretty much on the HASU board meeting. And I also attended, but we're coming up on another one, a special service district meeting for the Canyonlands Healthcare. The last one was basically, it was a public hearing and discussed budget and audit and all of that financial stuff that is so exciting. But the nursing home or the care center itself is still a five-star facility, and that doesn't mean anything except if you've ever been through a nursing home or a care center survey, and they will take a white glove and run it along a bed rail, and you'll get dinged on it. And I do have to read what the director said, and I'm just going to read it. It's two sentences, and then I'm done. We're on the 11th round of employee testing throughout the hospital. If our community stays in the low category, we all still only have to be tested once a month. If cases increase, we will go to weekly testing. This will be a hardship on Moab, so I hope Moab people will start behaving. So behave and wear your mask. That's it.
Thanks, Tawny. I couldn't imagine a nasal swab once a week. Karen.
Okay, so I attended the public asset development webinar that Caitlin Myers asked us to join. It was with the Zions Bank VP of Community and Regional Development. Interesting points through that and finding what your community's assets are and long-term viability of what we have, and doing basically a survey of our properties. The interesting points were that we shouldn't just focus on housing, that it's short-sighted. We need to look at mixed use developments and set social detriments and health priorities at the top of our list for our community. and integrate transportation and land use planning as public assets. So, and this Zions Bank is working with Moab, working with Caitlin, and it was pretty exciting to see what we're trying to do with our housing development, and it just put me in a better space as to our long-term asset growth that we're creating with that with the development. So that was good. I attended a electric and autonomous shuttle for the first and last mile. It was another webinar recommended from ULCT, case study from Canada's capital city of Ottawa. It was pretty exciting. There was quite a few hot spot funding discussions that happened this last week. I had a chamber meeting, the discussion for Light It Up Main, the Main Street Cruise, which was very successful. Emily, thank you for your help on that. That was a big deal. And Shop Local, the virtual auction. So the chamber is starting their virtual auction. It started today at noon. And it's a great opportunity for anyone and everyone to shop locally through the auction website, which is 32auction.com/Moab Chamber 2020. I sat in on the ULCT town hall yesterday. I had an airport board meeting. For November, we've had 890 employments for the month of November in comparison to 1,200 last year, which is a 25% decrease. It looks like by the end of this year, we're probably going to be at a 50% decrease in employments, which is understandable. And then I started taking some online classes, modules with the Federal Highway Administration STEP program, which is safe transportation for every pedestrian. So there are different modules on what to do for crosswalk visibilities or road diets or median refuge areas, and just how to plan for pedestrian safety. So that's it.
Thank you, Karen. Kaylin?
I attended a Moab Composting Coalition meeting. It's just getting going, so it was somewhat free form. I attended a Moab Dark Skies meeting. The county is working on a compliant lighting display. The group is getting closer to rolling out a residential lighting conversion assistance program. There's been a rise in negative comments about perceptions of the new lighting code, as well as complaints about non-compliant lighting. So people are paying attention. I attended a regional transportation plan stakeholder meeting. We reviewed the public survey results, although the public survey was still open at that time. Peak season tourism traffic was the #1 concern. Enhancing quality of life was the #1 goal. Lots of interest and discussion about a bypass, as well as encouraging UDOT to take a regional view of freight transport needs and opportunities, and seriously considering a route through Hanksville as an alternate to 191 between I-70 and Monticello. Had a solid waste special service district meeting. Budget and a recycling sponsorship program were the focuses. Housing task force meeting. Tawny covered much of what was discussed there. The idea of a good landlord program and discussion about landlord-tenant relations was also a topic, which was something we talked about a couple of years ago. I attended a meeting. It was basically the airport and stakeholders meeting with Rocky Mountain Power to discuss the possibility of a larger photovoltaic array out there. And it seems like, given the current regulatory environment and economics, it's probably not too practical at this point, but the airport might still do their own array. And then I attended a travel council meeting. Dylan Hoyt, the park manager at Dead Horse State Park, gave a very interesting presentation, but bottom line is that it's been super busy out there, and they anticipate that continuing through until next summer, and then probably more normal, and then a busy fall. the travel council and is busy trying to meet the letter and intent of the recent county commission resolution for them to really focus on education and mitigation. And they're doing that in multiple ways, including retooling the website, billboards, other outreach, as well as engaging in a couple of, in a Utah Office of Tourism grant program to do a community assessment and increase their data gathering. That's what I've got.
Thank you, Kaylin. And in my haste of reporting, I failed to report out to all of you that I will plan to attend the Transportation Commission meeting on Friday with the chair of the Arches Hotspot Coordinating Committee, Curtis Wells. And we will be there to listen to UDOT's recommendation for moving forward with hotspot funding. We received word this week, well, pretty much last week, this week, from UDOT that they plan to fund the shared use path, fund the dispersed parking. And at this time, they're not going to yet fund the 1.858 million for transit because they'd like to first fund a $50,000-ish study of transit, which will then lead to the hopeful funding the funding's been allocated, the spending of that final amount by UDOT for transit. So while transit will not be on the plate for approved and ready to spend by our Transportation Commission, UDOT staff still intends to move forward with transit, but at a slower rate. And the next step is a study. So just thanks to Carly and her efforts of all the behind the scenes work to working with UDOT and Karen and Kaylin and all the members of the committee that put forward the recommendations and have been working with UDOT. Karen and Carly, if there's anything I'm missing that should be shared with the council, will you share it? Or does that encapsulate what we're doing here?
I think you covered it.
Yeah.
Okay. We were a little nervous at first when we heard from UDOT that transit was not going to be presented at the Transportation Commission, but all is well. And it's just going to take a little more time because we need to study it and figure out what we're going to be doing. And that's that. Moving right along. And I just want to note that it is 9 o'clock. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move through our agenda with efficiency and effectiveness. Agenda item 6.1 minutes from our November 10th meeting 2020. Is there a motion?
Move to approve those minutes.
Thank you, Kaylin. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Ronnie?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. New business 7.1, proposed resolution 39-2020, a resolution approving the Sunflower Minor subdivision of property located at 889 North Main Street, Moab, Utah, 84532. This is a briefing and possible action. And Nora or Corey? We have Nora from outer space.
Yeah, and
Nora.
Corey should be here too. He's not. Summer, do you see Corey?
Nope.
No, that's weird. Okay. We have two subdivisions Well, we have three minor subdivisions that are on the agenda tonight. The first one is for approving the Sunflower Minor Subdivision, and it's 889 North Main Street. Corey has a nice PowerPoint presented if we could find him. But it's basically taking a piece of property that's owned by J.J. Wong and splitting it into two pieces. One piece, there's an existing structure on, and so that would be split off and leave a remaining 3-acre parcel. So it splits a parcel into two, which is a minor subdivision. There is a shared access, and so that will be shown on the plat, so that it decreases the number of curb cuts onto the highway.
Nora, I'm comfortable moving forward without a presentation on any of these minor subdivisions as they passed 5-0 at the Planning Commission level.
Yes.
But I do think, I do want to leave room for questions. So council, do you have any questions on this agenda item? Ronnie?
Nora, can you just confirm this is all in the C4, only because of that question I put on the shared document about just wanting to make sure, because the city map shows part of it is R2.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me to mention that. Yes, apparently our GIS that the public can access from our website is not the most current version. And so our engineering department is looking into that, but it is in fact C4.
Okay, great. And the only other question I had is one that I asked Lori on the shared document, and I don't know if this matters. I'm not a lawyer or a planner, but I've noticed as I go along and I read, I sometimes have to look at something that was planned years ago, and I have to look at the old document. You know, I'll be reading along and it'll say the proposed use, and I'll be thinking, oh, you know, whatever it is, 1990 something. I wonder what the proposed use was, but you can't find anything that says what the proposed use was. So I realized I kind of misread this, and in the agenda summary for proposed use, I mean, it kind of says commercial, but it also says, you know, there are currently no plans for future development or redevelopment on either proposed lot. And I have no idea. Lori had told me that in some ways it might be good to be specific as possible. So I didn't know, does it ever help? I'm just thinking about people who come, you know, after me and are looking at these documents and trying to figure out what the proposed use was in case it affects anything. Is there any benefit when you write these resolutions like under C, instead of just saying the proposed uses are allowed as permitted uses, to just say the desired use for this as for commercial is appropriate? I'm just trying to protect people down the line from, I don't know, not having to delve as deep as I've had to, but that's a question for you lawyers, I guess.
Well, and I think with a subdivision, it's merely the division of land. Mm-hmm. And especially a minor subdivision, we're taking one piece and splitting it into two, and they both have street frontage. So it's a commercial zone, and I don't know what the proposed use will be of the new lot. Something that sits in the C4, and then we have an existing use on the other half of the property, and so we don't know what the proposed use necessarily will be, but it would have to be something that's consistent with the zoning.
And to answer your question, Ronnie, if A and B are both allowed in the zone and you permit the subdivision and you say it's for A, but B is allowed in the zone, they can still legally do B even though they told you they were going to do A.
Oh, no, I totally get that. I think I probably just can't explain what my question is, so I'm just gonna let it go.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, Tawny?
Would you entertain a motion?
I would.
I move to approve Moab City Resolution 39-2020, a resolution approving the Sunflower Minor Subdivision of property located at 889 North Main Street, Moab, Utah, 84522.
Thank you, Tawny. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll take it from Kaylin. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Ronnie,
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. On to 7.2, proposed resolution 40-2020. A resolution approving the Jasmine Minor subdivision of property located at 1089 North Main Street, Moab, Utah, 84532. Corey, thanks for joining us. It looks like you're rustling some cattles back there. I don't think I said that right.
That's right. Hopefully you can.
Well, I was just going to say that, because the Planning Commission passed these subdivisions with unanimously, I felt comfortable moving forward without any kind of presentation. So
Entertain a motion, Mayor.
I would.
I move to approve proposed resolution 40-2020, a resolution approving the Jasmine Minor subdivision of property located at 1089 North Main Street, Moab, Utah, 84532.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Tawny. Discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Galen?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 7.3, proposed resolution 45-2020, a resolution approving the MAPS Phase 3 minor subdivision of property located at Care Campus Drive, Moab, Utah, 84532, parcel number 01-0-map-0004. It looks like we've got Joette with us, and I do, I'm going to message Jen right now to tell her she is up. And hopefully she'll be joining us, but I don't know, again, if we need a presentation on this item. I would welcome a presentation if you feel it's needed. Otherwise, I would welcome discussion or a motion. Tawny?
I'll move to approve Moab City Resolution 45-2020, a resolution approving the MAPS Phase 3 minor subdivision of property located at Care Campus Drive, Moab, Utah.
Thank you, Tawny. Is there a second?
No.
Thank you, Ronnie. Discussion? Tawny?
I think this was explained in the packet pretty well. This is just two pieces of property that the hospital owns one and the Special Service District owns the other. The subdivision is necessary just to facilitate possible sale or trade of this down the road, to make the roads that go around the hospital, as I understood it, into actual city roads, and to make them straighter and easier to navigate. And the Special Service District has not made a plan or decided what they're going to do. This is just the first step to move forward if they do want to sell it or trade it. Did I get that right, Joette?
Yeah, the intent is to facilitate the hospital's expansion plans. And so we'll be meeting tomorrow, the district, and we'll determine, decide how we want to exchange or sell the land. But the intent is to help support the hospital in their expansion. It's coming up really soon.
Right. And at this point in time, we're not making a decision on Park Drive. So it really doesn't road going through at this point in time. That decision will be made when we know what the plans for the parcel are for the hospital expansion. So that decision has yet to be made. I know that there in the past when there's been a discussion about that. So we also know from a planning perspective that in general connectivity is good, but that's not the subject of this application really at all. The subject is the hospital can do trades or whatever they need to do in order to facilitate their expansion. It's my understanding.
Okay. At this point, I would entertain a motion unless there's still further discussion that the council would like to have.
Already made a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right, you did. So any further discussion? Okay. I will call for the vote. Mike.
Aye.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Ronnie.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're just going so quickly. I'm impressed by our efficiency. Okay,
Thank you,
next
guys.
item. Yeah, thanks for joining. Next item on our agenda, 7.4, proposed ordinance 2020-16, an ordinance imposing a local sales and use tax of 0.1% to fund cultural arts facilities and programs and recreation facilities in the city of Moab, providing severability and an effective date for the ordinance. Joel?
So when we put this together, we were thinking that this looked like a short agenda and that we would have time to discuss what this was going to look like in a larger form. This has not been a short agenda. I've taken the liberty as we've been sitting here and I've removed the code section from the ordinance, and we can discuss the code section if we want to start working towards putting that together tonight, or we can just adopt the ordinance adopting the rate that was approved by the voters. And I have a motion for that, and the ordinance just removes the code. It's entirely up to you guys. The whole crux of what we're trying to do tonight was getting the ordinance approved to adopt the rate so we can get it to the state. The state code requires that in order for us to be able to adopt this, it has to be there 90 days before the quarter of implementation. So the goal is to get the rate to the state tax commission by January 1, so we can get our first collection point to begin on April 1. So our first collection could be July 1 of 2021, which would be a small amount because it's quarterly. So how we collect that, when we divvy it out, when we actually decide how it's going to get paid to anyone, could be as far out as our budget for July 1, 2022. Like this could be a year and a half away before we ever spend it. So the conversation on what the committee looks like, we were just trying to basically get out there and get a crux of it started so we could start down that road. Doesn't have to happen tonight. All we really need to do tonight is adopt the rate.
Tawny?
I think that the larger discussion deserves some time, because I'm sure that we will want to flesh this out and know what it is. I would be very much in favor of just adopting it tonight so that we are compliant and get it to the State Tax Commission on time. And in a meeting shortly after the beginning of the year, we can start to craft what we want that to look like.
So if I share my screen, if that's okay, real quick, I can show you, did I share the right one? That's the question. Try that again. I don't think I did. Okay, so if you're seeing the ordinance there.
Yes.
So what you're seeing there is basically the code has been removed. I would remove, the council finds that we would remove this language right here. Enacted to govern the imposition. So basically the language would be cleaned up, and all it would include is the adoption language of the rate. And that is the language that's here. And the code would be removed from it, and we would send that off to the State Tax Commission in order to get the clock ticking on the 90-day requirement to get the tax rate passed.
So then if Tawny wanted to make the motion, she would essentially.
Read that motion right there.
Except I can't read it.
Very small.
You want me to do it, Tawny?
Yeah, if you can read it, go ahead. I'm okay with it.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2020-16, an ordinance imposing a local sales and use tax of 0.1% to fund cultural arts facilities and programs and recreation facilities in the city of Moab, providing severability and an effective date for the ordinance, removing the code language for a recreation, art, and parks tax citizen committee.
Thank you, Ronnie. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Tawny, I'll let you second. Discussion. I just want to say that while we're removing language about a committee, it doesn't mean we're not moving forward with a committee. We're just not doing the parameters at this time.
Yeah,
And it
at
looks
the
by the
time-
nod of everyone's head that we're all in agreement of that. Ronnie?
Yeah, so I think we all got the correspondence from the Moab Arts Council. So is the understanding with what you're suggesting, Tawny, is that we would then be able to go back and discuss the structure of that. There were some good suggestions in there about different ideas for how one might
Right.
want to, one might want to say you spend a quarter of this on parks, a quarter on recreation, a quarter on arts, and a quarter on nonprofits doing that work. But we would have the opportunity to discuss that and get input from groups like that at that point.
Well, I think we'd have the opportunity to discuss that, but we also might have a little bit better understanding of what we need versus what we want. So,
Okay, yeah, no, as long as that opportunity is open from input.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Well, to be clear, any revenue we collect under this tax has to go through you guys to be appropriated. We can't spend any of it without your approval. So like this money could never be spent anywhere before it came to you for approval. So you'll always have a say how this money is spent.
And Joel, from what I understand, you're setting this group up similar to like the Planning Commission and the Water Board, where I'll bring a name, or the mayor will bring a name to the council. The council will provide consent that will make up that group, and then they meet, discuss, and bring back to us their recommendation.
Absolutely. One of the tenets of American democracy is the executive has the power of appointment, the legislature has the power of approval. It'd be yours to select and the councils to approve. So that's how we set up the boards. It's why we set them up that way. It functions that way all the way from our level of government up to the highest offices of the federal government. It's the same process.
So is that something we could do?
Excuse me?
Oh, I think Tawny was saying, maybe we come back and discuss this soon. So is that something we could put on a January meeting?
Absolutely. And how we spend it is a question. The percentage wise, that's a solid question. How we want to do that. When we spend it is a great question, where if we only get one allotment between April and July of this year, we may not want to spend it till July 2022, take a year to collect an entire amount to see how much we're going to get over the 4 separate payments. We may not even want to spend the money until the following budget cycle. That's something to consider as well. Because at this budget cycle, we'll only have collected one quarterly payment. It could be as minimal as $60,000. It could be anywhere up to $100,000. But if you collect all 4 before the next budget cycle and you have an entire year's amount, then you have a pot worth dealing with. And you also have a better idea of what you're actually going to get in the revenue cycle. So all things to consider. Nothing we know, a lot of unknowns at this point, all things to just think about for now.
Okay, so unless there's any further discussion, I will call for the vote. Kaylin?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're now at agenda item 7.5, 2021 legislative session priorities discussion. Let's go ahead and bring in, I see Casey Hill, welcome. And you had 2 members of your team joining us as well. Hi, Casey.
There we go.
Oh,
I had in the waiting room was Casey.
What's that, Summer?
Casey was the only one left in the waiting room.
So that was easy.
Okay.
You knew it was me, huh?
Okay. Last man standing.
I do have
Thank
a
you for
couple
bringing
of
us-
my associates who I think were going to join us today. So I don't know if they're jumping on. If you see Summer, if you see them come on, I wouldn't be
I'll watch
surprised
for 'em.
if they jump on, because I know they've been tracking this along with me.
I'll watch for him.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Casey, I'm going to warn you that we've been meeting since 6 p.m. So
I know you have. Yeah, I've been with you since 7. So just
well,
listening.
thank you for sticking with us. So I'm assuming you had a chance to read the agenda summary as well. So
I did.
and we're refreshed of our agenda or our our proposed priorities. Joel, how would you like to move through this agenda item?
Well, we put out the agenda item and we listed the main things, the 5 main things that we've talked about with you guys already about what our priorities are going to be. We are going to go into the session this year with those priorities already in mind. I'd like to get more information from the council if there's things that aren't included on this list that you'd like us to set out to try and accomplish. As we go into the legislative session, obviously it's fast and furious and there's lots of bills being floated and there's obviously certain things that we'll react to and deal with on a day in and day out basis, but we're going to start a tracking sheet that Carly and I will update probably daily. We'll probably take turns every other day, each of us doing it one day or the next. And that way you guys have the ability to track bills daily as they're going through and give us as close to 24/7 feedback as possible. So we have your information as we go forward. Obviously some of this works so quickly that we'll just have to make some decisions on the fly, but we want to be able to give you guys the ability to see what bills are popping up that we feel like you should be watching and get your input on them. The legislative priority list we want to generate tonight is kind of the direction we want to give Casey and his fellow workers of what we want them to be working on up on the Hill and what our priorities are that they need to stay focused on. Obviously, Carly and I and the mayor and you guys will be dealing with the things that pop up and certain bills that just need, lead guidance from what we want, but these are the things we actually want to be working towards. And so with that, you guys have met Casey before. He came down actually last year when we hired him, and I want to tell him and his staff and tell them thank you for all their help in October when we had the legislature members come down, and it was a very successful meeting and it was very much they're doing, and I can't thank them enough for the level of service they've already provided our community and the payback that we've already got in return for what we pay them versus what we've already received in CARES funding and other benefits from having the relationship we have with them. So it goes without saying, I think. So I'll let Casey introduce his staff and then we'll go into a discussion as to what priorities the council would like to see on the list, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Joel. So as Joel mentioned, my name's Casey Hill, Red Hill Strategic. I know you guys have been on for a long time. I won't spend a ton of time on that, but with us tonight, you have Greg Curtis. He's showing up as Johnny. I'm not sure, but that's Greg in the red there, and David Stewart is listening on the call. So these guys are part of the Red Hill team. They worked on the TRT funding issue last year, and that we were able to successfully help with. Joel gave me credit for the legislators coming down, and I guess I will take some credit in reaching out to those legislators and successfully getting them to say yes. I will give most of the credit to the mayor. She came up with that idea. It was really something that when she brought it up, I thought, man, that sounds like a lot of work, and I'm not sure it's going to be worth the effort. And I will say it was very much worth the time that was put into that. Getting the legislators down and having them experience some of what the benefits and the beautiful area that Moab is, but also understanding some of the challenges. There's nothing like sitting right there on Main Street, trying to have dinner and trying to have a conversation and seeing, the traffic and everything else that people are experiencing there. And so it was very helpful in helping kind of really bring some of those issues home for the legislators who don't have the day-to-day experience with Moab. So anyway, with regard to the priorities that I have that so far that have been provided to me, we have off-highway vehicle regulations. We have public noticing, road infrastructure appropriation, TRT, sunset provision for municipalities and affordable housing. Those are what I have listed on my list of items here, and I'm happy to discuss any of those at length. I will say that I think it would be preferable to me if we didn't spend a ton of time on any one of those issues talking about strategy in a meeting like this, because it can be important that we kind of keep some of those things close to the vest and I know there's a couple of these items, especially the UTV issue that people are watching very closely already, and there's already some significant concern and pushback coming from the UTV community. So I'm open for further input. I'm happy to answer questions just in terms of where things currently stand, if you want to go into that level of detail, but I'll take direction from you guys.
Yep, just one second. I wanted to say it's great for us to have, you know, a good idea of going in of what our priorities are and knowing that bills are going to pop up and that priorities may shift. So it's nice to have Joel and Carly on top of tracking and you by our side. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Casey, just in the last couple of days, the Salt Lake Tribune published a story about public lands issues. I'm sitting here looking at it now. Davalier Law Group, Carl Albrecht is involved with this. Lindsay Fillmore, it says, Kevin Stratton, Kay Christofferson,
yep,
Ron Winterton, and so forth, all about spending $1 million between Davalier and Sunrise Engineering, which apparently is more of a technical kind of thing. But this is the same bunch who back in 2015 encouraged the state to spend a lot of money trying to wage a battle against federal government, trying to make basically the constitutional argument that there shouldn't be any federal land in Utah. And obviously, seeing as how Moab's whole economy is built around public lands, this is something that we are not in favor of. So I would strongly encourage you to take on this issue as well. And I want to thank Eve Talman in particular for reminding me, among other people, that this issue has come up again. So what's your take on that?
My response to that is I have not been focused on that issue, so I don't really have much to share with you right now. Now that you've put it on my radar, I'll make some phone calls and reach out and see kind of what the plans are and where things are headed with those legislators. So if you can put that on the item or on the list of I'll report back to you, I'm happy to do that, and just give me a week or so and I'll follow up with you on that.
Yeah, well, don't wait. Yeah, well, thank you. Don't wait too long. They're trying to get under the radar screen here before a change of administrations. They're trying to get the contract signed. They won't even meet again until after the legislative session. So the whole thing is very rushed. Nobody's seen this in public. So if the whole thing smells really fishy to me, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Ronnie, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to ask you, Casey, or you, Joel, without taking a lot of time, can you, one of you, or both of you, whatever, briefly just explain for people watching, because I had some residents ask me, and I thought it would be great if you guys explained what the public noticing item is all about, because some of them said, does that mean we want less public noticing? And I was like, no, that's not what it's about. But anyway, if you could briefly explain that one, and then just if there's anything specific about the road infrastructure appropriations and TRT, and if the TRT crosses into, any of the flexibility that the county's been looking for. Thanks.
I'll let Casey take the last two. I'll take the first one. The first one's a perfect example of tonight with the budget hearing. Because our paper only publishes 1 day a week, sometimes we have these windows where like Christmas and all this falls in. And if we don't hit that specific paper, instead of being a 7-day notice, it becomes a 21 to 28 day notice. And so all we're trying to ask him to do, we're not trying to avoid the publishing requirement. What we're trying to get him to do is allow us just to start our clock once we put it on our website, once we put it on the state website, and once we get it on up in City Hall, and still have to publish in that 7-day window. But let us start our clock once we hit all of the electric spots first. And then if we get it all up there on a Wednesday and it publishes on a Thursday, our clock actually started on Wednesday when we got it all up everywhere else. Or like if we could have put it all up Monday on all that other stuff, we could have started our clock Monday. And then when it goes in the paper Thursday, our meeting's still not till the following Monday or Tuesday. And it's been up on the other stuff for a week. So we're just trying to change when we can start counting official publication. We're not trying to change in any way where we have to publish. We're just trying to change the clock start time from publication in the paper to publication on our webpage and on the state noticing webpage. And most people who are actually following this stuff nowadays are using the state noticing webpage for notification, because once we publish there, it automatically generates them that email in their inbox and gives them notice that we've published something. And so that's how most people are tracking it anyways, for that notice. And so we're trying to get them to change it to that. So once we post it there and it fires off that email to everyone, that we can start our counting clock there. But we'd still be required to take all the same steps.
Okay, thanks. I just thought if you explained it, that would help the people who asked me. Thanks.
Yeah. Regarding the second question, Ronnie, will you restate that one more time just so we make sure?
Oh yeah, I was just wondering if these two items are what they sound like, or if they, would be helped with by any description like Joel gave. Just the road infrastructure appropriations. Is that just, we're looking for more money for road infrastructure? I don't know if there's anything more to
generally
it.
Speaking, correct.
Okay.
So
then,
with regard to that, I'll just tell you that we have on our team, I think the two kind of premier road infrastructure, lobbyists in the state. In particular, Greg Curtis, this is kind of his area of expertise. So I don't know if he really has anything additionally to add to that at this point, Greg, but I just wanted to let him take that particular item.
Thanks, Casey. No, the only real discussion in regards to that is UDOT. There's a lot of discussion about a large transportation bond, and UDOT has a prioritization process that they go through, but they try really hard to try and keep legislative influence out of that. But there will be there'll be a lot of efforts to try and have legislators influence that and say, in support of that, I have these transportation projects I would ask you to consider or something. And so we will simply be monitoring that bond, participating in the discussions in the Infrastructure and General Government Appropriations Committee, and trying to make sure that, and this would be state roads that would affect Moab, but there's obviously Main Street and any improvements and or moving things along with environmental studies or other things for state roads in the area.
Okay, and just the other one was about TRT, only because maybe you could just briefly talk about sunset provisions for municipalities, because I think the county has been interested for a while on partnering about, just more flexibility with TRT, and I wasn't sure if the sunset was totally separate or if they're.
Yeah, they're totally separate.
Okay.
The TRT sunset provision for municipalities, some of our resort collect taxes that we can collect are tied to a window that ends in 2023. And that they have to be tied to certain types of bonds. And we want them to change some of how that works so we can keep collecting and collect in different ways.
Didn't we get that passed?
Joel, actually, I have good news on that one. You can take that one off the list. That bill.
Yeah, we talked about that last year.
Yeah, we actually, that one's fixed. So we actually, through a piece of legislation last year, we were able to take that I guess that window and just kind of take the end point that was statutorily outlined and remove that. So that language.
The other question we had with it, Casey, was that it had to be tied to certain types of bonding that we needed to be expanded out. Was that part of it addressed as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That was
so that particular item is taken care of. With regard to the other item, I know that there are efforts moving forward. Carl Albrecht has a bill that he's working on that particular issue. So we'll be working. I had a conversation with Carl last week where and a representative from the Association of Counties, and it was that's one of Carl's top priorities. He told me it was going to be a priority bill for him.
Perfect.
Casey, is that the one dealing with the discretionary spending and what the TRT tax can be used for? Isn't that what? Yeah. So right now it's statutorily limited. The hoteliers have said, look, if we're paying this additional or special tax, it should be to promote tourism and other things. And I think Representative Albrecht is trying to say, look, there's also impacts associated with tourism. We want to be able to use it for law enforcement and other things that are not currently specifically allowed. And so I think quite a bit of support for that, but there is some pushback from some of the hoteliers throughout the state on that. So,
yeah.
Well, and just to kind of speak from a city perspective, because we are not limited in how we are able to spend in the way that the county is. Yeah. However, we are uniquely interested in how the state spends the money that's not distributed back to us. So the TRT funds that are collected, they are sent to the state and then they cut us a check back. And I think it is worth for us to, I don't know that we have an ask in this quite yet, but we need to continue to tell our story. And so I think, you know, as we are talking about TRT, I think it's very important for us to distinguish what the county is going to be asking for, but then what this city is actually interested in as well. Because what that looks like for us is more access to impact mitigation and really, you know, spending those tax dollars to protect and improve upon the experience of the visitors when they're here.
Yeah, and the TRT issue that we had with the sunset provision wasn't just the year requirement. It was also had to be tied to certain bonds, or even if the years hadn't expired, if you had till 2023, but your bonds had expired, you still couldn't continue to collect it, even though you had 2 or 3 years left. And so we were not only looking for the time frame to be expanded, we were also looking to be able to attach it to new types of bond work. And that's municipal problem.
So Joel, we should probably talk more maybe with legal counsel on that specific item and really make sure that we you know, fully completed that, you know, that effort there. So let's just make sure that we've done everything that needs to be done. We didn't have, you know, a significant amount of pushback on that. And now that we've kind of taken the end date off of that, I think the rest of it is just going to be a matter of you know, kind of figuring out the details of it and making sure we get it right. But let's make sure we get it right. So if we haven't got it 100% exactly what you guys need, we'll need to figure that out.
Yeah, because with the extension, without the addition of the bonding problem, even though the time frame got extended out, we would still have to surrender our collection. And so from our perspective, it still needs fixed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So are we all feeling pretty good about the priorities set forward? Ronnie, you have a hand?
Well, it sounds like there'll be a list where we can add other things, but I always feel like every year when we discuss it, it's probably good to reiterate that one of our longstanding issues, I think probably at the county too, is just always watching out for potential loss of local control as a municipality. And often that has to do with, you know, concerns like water and other resources, but you know, land use planning too. So that just always is still on my list. And I just had a specific one, and I didn't know if this council felt strongly about it, but I'll put it on the list in case you wonder why it's there. But I know Senator Iwamoto has a bill up that is designed to prevent police officers under disciplinary investigation from jumping to another agency within the state without a paper trail. And so I don't have the number offhand, but that was one I had asked our police chief about that he was supportive of. So I felt like that was on my list for that reason.
Carly, are you writing, are you on this list? Will you provide that type of information? I just want to make sure I'm understanding exactly how that type of issue will be tracked. Will that go on your tracking sheet, or do I need to?
That one will probably go on to like mine and Carly's, because that's one that's going to affect the state as a large. The league's already weighed in on it. Cameron was actually quoted in the paper just the other day about it. And they haven't taken a position in support of it yet, but the league is supportive of it. They're just waiting to see the language. So that's probably one that we'll just track. It's looking like it's probably going to pass. Most of the police chiefs that they're interviewing are in favor of it. So it's probably one that's probably going to take care of itself, but we'll absolutely track it. And if we have to start weighing in on it, we will. But right now it's looking like the league and everyone's going to get behind that one to push it through. And Post was supportive of it as well.
Okay.
I just have one other question. I know Grand County is in the process of discussing getting a lobbyist. I don't know, if they would work with you or someone else, but is that then common for you if you're the city lobbyist, and if you don't happen to be the county lobbyist as well, for you to sometimes collaborate and work together, just like things like the TRT, whereas we have flexibility with it. I think all of us totally support and want to support the county in having flexibility, more flexibility themselves. So just know that we do want that for them.
Yes, so we're in conversation with Christina Sloan and Commissioner from Grand County. We hope to be able to at least be a part of representing Grand County, or if not, we'll work very closely with whoever they choose to represent them. So I have no concerns over that.
Thanks.
Yep.
So in terms of the ATV regulations, I'm not totally clear on what's being advocated for. Should I, per the comment at the beginning of this discussion, should I coordinate with the mayor or someone, a staff person?
Yeah, we can talk after.
Okay. And in terms of the road infrastructure appropriations, I'm wondering if you need clear direction so that you can make comments on the fly because it's fast moving during the legislative session, or will you notice something and then feed that to Joel or Carly and they can cue us for input, or how does that work process wise?
It's very helpful for us to know what, in regards to state roads, what would you like to see happen in regards to state roads in Moab and or surrounding areas, so that we're aware, so we can simply advocate and discuss with legislators as it's being developed. And the unfortunate reality is a lot of large budgetary bonding type decisions will percolate for 42 days and then it will move at lightning speed, and so if we had an idea as to what priorities were there and what you want us to advocate for, that's very helpful, so that we're not just guessing and saying, well, this is a state road, and you're like, no, that isn't our priority. So that would be something where I would encourage the council and staff to kind of put together an idea of priorities, and and then it's literally, it's like an Easter egg hunt. You're trying to gather as much as you can. So, it'd be.
Should we add to our priorities, being able to throw candy during a parade?
Yeah.
Main Street when it's closed.
Let's hope we're not too far away from having that problem taken care of.
I know, that'd be a good problem. Let's get back to that problem.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, and council, this feels really good moving forward into the legislative session here in January. We're going to have another meeting, and we're going to have a better feel of more bills as they pop up. So we'll be working closely together and in communication, all of us. So
thank
thanks
you,
for
Mayor.
joining
Thank
us
you, Council.
tonight. Yeah.
Thanks
Thanks
you,
for
everybody.
working on our behalf. Yeah, good to see you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
And now we are at the agenda item 7.6, our proposed 2021 City Council meeting schedule. I don't know if we need conversation around this, or if I would entertain a motion. Ronnie?
I'll make a motion to approve it. Summer and I just discussed one small typo. I think we've got our first regular meeting as November 19th, and it should be the 9th. And then I just needed a reminder before my motion from you guys. Do we usually make a decision to have one meeting in November, December because of Christmas and Thanksgiving now, or do we approve this with those dates in it?
Normally you approve it with one in November and one in December. Me and Summer went back through your meeting histories and you guys have 2 or 3 or 4 meetings in each of those months. So just threw 2 in there because you tend to have them anyways, but you're willing to strike your wish to strike them, you feel free.
Ronnie, I went back and I can tell you in 2018, you had 4 meetings in November and 2 meetings in December. And then in 2019, there were 3 meetings in November and 3 meetings in December.
I'm guessing, was one regular and the rest were special, or did we actually have 2 regulars? Okay. I guess I need to know from the council then before I make a motion what you guys want on this thing.
Well, considering that you guys have off from this Christmas to New Year and we have a meeting scheduled for December 28th, doesn't.
That won't work next year. That meeting will be canceled, I guarantee it.
Right.
I'm looking for my 2021 calendar because I don't know what day Thanksgiving is, but.
We can take it and just put the first Tuesday like we have in the past and leave it open. We just put 2 on there on each one because it was like, we're holding 2 meetings a month in these months anyways. So is it easier to schedule them now than go through? Or do you guys like having it open and filling it in with stuff that we're trying to do at the end of the year?
No. No, I hate it. I would rather have the meetings scheduled and decide not to use them than to scramble at the end of the year and add 3 extra meetings. That's just me. I'll do whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, well, I'll let one of you alter this, but I guess I'll make a motion to approve the meeting schedule.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry, Ronnie, just 1 second. One more thing that we did discuss, adding to the schedule, a caveat of meeting electronically. So I don't know if we need that language, or that will be added to the.
I'll work with Lori on that language so that when the public notice goes to the paper, it'll have that on there to cover us.
But I don't think would that change the motion?
It should change the motion.
Before you make the motion as well, because of what Karen said, the meetings noticed for November are the 9th and the 23rd. I would recommend for December, they be the 7th and the 21st. Because that's still 2 weeks between the last meeting in November and the next meeting in December. And it gives you 2 in December, 1 not on the 28th. So I'd make a motion.
The only thing that does is doesn't it put it on the same nights as the county commission meets?
It does.
Yeah.
We could swap, couldn't we change those to Wednesday night or something like that?
You can do them any night you like, or you could just do one on the 14th and only do one in December. Try and just do one in
You can
December.
leave your December one as just a solo. And then if you need special meetings, you can call those later.
okay, I'll make a crazy attempt at a motion of approving this schedule, but with our first November meeting on the 9th of November, our second November meeting on November 23rd, and a meeting in December on December 14th.
Perfect.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Thanks,
I will.
Tawny. Thank you, Tawny. Discussion? Okay. I'll call for the vote. Tawny. Discussion, Karen.
Yeah, sorry. So Thanksgiving falls on the 25th. So that would be a meeting. Correct? Am I looking at the schedule
Yes.
correctly? So
That's
there'd be meeting the day before or 2 days before.
Yeah, if
No,
we're meeting
it's
in person,
canceled.
I won't make that.
I would be happy to amend my motion to a different date for the second meeting in November. Somebody throw me one.
Well, I would recommend that you just drop the second meeting in both November and December.
Okay, I shall so forth amend my motion to accept this schedule with our one meeting in November on the 9th and one meeting in December on the 14th of December.
I'll second that one.
Okay. Discussion. All right then. Tawny,
Aye.
Galen,
Aye.
Ronnie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye, there, sorry about that.
and Karen.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 7-7, proposed 2021 Moab City holiday schedule. Is there a motion?
What does the asterisk thing at the bottom mean? It's in bold, italic, and it has an asterisk in front of it.
I think because it covers that week, when I republished the public notice this year, I just used that format. So
Okay.
it's possible that I didn't actually translate what the italics or the asterisk means because it was just copied from the last one.
Oh, okay. I move to approve the holiday schedule 2021.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kaylin. Thank you, Connie. Discussion?
I don't think we have the power to change holidays.
No, but I just, can I ask, so the city employees are getting off the 23rd to January 2nd. Is that correct?
That's what it looks like. It's a week of holiday break.
Well,
So I think it translates
Actually, like,
to,
that's like 12 days.
well, it's
Because
it's
Christmas
9.
falls, it's because Christmas falls on a Saturday. And the first falls on a Saturday. It's just a fluke because of that.
so is the offices being closed the same as holiday for employees, or does that just mean that this is a notice to the public that they can't show up in person and get service?
I understand this to be a holiday break for the employees. And it's something that we've been doing for several years now.
No, it's not. It's not, Mayor. We haven't done this historically. This was something that we agreed to do because we cut $700,000 out of employees this year to save costs going into Corona. And this was one of the things we did to give back. So if we don't want to do it, that's fine. But that's why this was added to this.
We did not do this last year because I
No.
thought we did. Well,
Oh.
Summer just,
For a couple of days.
did Summer
Oh.
not just say she cut and paste?
We changed this when we adopted the new budget in June. When we adopted the new budget under Corona and when we were adopting to cut out the 1.2 million, we changed the holiday schedule. It was a part of what we agreed to as a part of the changes we were making. So in June and July, when we adopted the new budget, we adopted it at that time. And so we had to renotice it in July with the change to the holiday schedule.
Okay.
We did not do this last year.
So maybe this is straying a little, but unless you're traveling to be with family, this can be kind of a bad time to travel. I mean, it's like early winter. Skiing isn't great often. The whole travel networks are crowded. If we want to give employees a gift, there might be better ways to do it. But I would look to you for advice on that.
I have lots of employees who don't travel. I have lots of employees who want the time off.
And they want it off then?
This was something that we talked about and agreed to at the time. We were cutting benefits, cutting positions, cutting pay. And this was one of the things we agreed at the time that we were going to do as a give and take. So if we don't want to do it, that's fine. But I want to fully recognize that with staff.
Oh, okay. So for how long did you agree to this?
Huh?
For how many years did you agree to this?
I didn't agree to it at all. This was something that we presented to you guys when we were doing budget cuts for COVID and for the budget crisis we were in as something we were going to do. Now, as those benefits come back, I don't think it's something that we keep doing. But we've never done it. We took all the benefits, we did all the cuts, we did all of that this year. And this is the first year that like this was, it's up for you guys to approve.
Well, Joe, let me ask you this. In the absence, suppose COVID is over with. If we go back to normal, tax it, the budget looks better, blah, blah, blah. This is a question for council and for staff, I guess, but in say 2018, for example, I take it last year, 2019 was or 2020 rather, was an abbreviated holiday scheduled to save some money. If that sort of constraint goes away, would we go back to a more generous, typically schedule for city holiday, for employees' holidays?
I would fully expect that if we got to the 2021, 2022 budget in June and we were adopting a new budget and things had returned to normal and our revenues were normal and we bumped our stuff back to normal, that this would go away.
Yeah.
I don't think this is forever, by no means.
Joel, when you say you took away all benefits and all, I mean, that is not the case.
I didn't say took away benefits. I said cut benefits. And we did cut benefits for employees. And we laid people off, and we also, we cut.
I know. I mean, this is, it's an awkward conversation, but again, it's 11 days that is.
Your guys is to approve or change.
We also suggested this time period because it is so dead at City Hall during this week.
It's not 11 work days. It's 11 total days. And the week between Christmas and New Year's, if you work it, it's completely dead. It is absolutely dead. I don't have any qualms about supporting this at all.
And here's the thing. What you're approving tonight is for 2021. It's not in a week. And when we get to June and July, if we're back to normal and revenues are back to normal and our budget's looking like last year and we return to a normal status, I think we return to a normal holiday status. I don't think this should be something everyone grows accustomed to. Just like I told my staff that when they were on a pay freeze and they weren't getting raises and they weren't getting their 5-year additional bumps and everything they haven't got this time, that wasn't long-term. And I don't think they expect that when that stuff returns that they get to keep all this as well. This was something we did to try and offset what we were losing for a while. And when that stuff comes back, I think this stuff goes away for sure.
Yeah. So Joe, what if we were to pass this tonight? Is there anything to stop us if things look good the middle of next year to granting some additional holidays in the last half of next year, for example?
No, I think if you pass this tonight and by June and July when we're doing budget and we go to adopt the budget for next year, if everything's normal, we go back to what it was before, just like we did if we do that with the other stuff. I think it returns. Then we go back to you get off the 24th and the 25th and you get off the 1st.
But it's easier to give than taketh away. So
exactly.
It would seem to make more sense to not pass it now and then wait and see during budget season.
Entirely up to you guys. I understand that it's easier to give than taketh away. I'm the one who had to address all the taketh away that I did with staff when we did the taketh away. I don't need that explained to me whatsoever. I can have those hard conversations with staff. And this conversation that you're losing these 5 days of vacation, but you're getting back pay raises, you're getting back your benefit load, you're getting back the things that you lost is a fair trade-off. That's a much easier conversation than the one I had in May.
What's going on here?
Nothing. I'm just explaining, I don't think that that's a fair point to make, that it's hard to do this now. I've had to have these hard conversations with the staff since March. I don't know why all of a sudden that's a consideration. It's we don't want to have that hard conversation.
Also my guess that the bulk of the staff that's off that time is going to work a good share of that time. This is silly.
I just
Ronnie?
have two things that might help in the future. It won't help us now, but I do think maybe there was some point in the time I was on council where we would make this decision a little bit later in the year. I understand that makes it very hard for people to plan travel, but maybe it was a budget reason or something that we decided later. I'm fine with approving this for 2021, but I do still have that devil's advocate question. Maybe you could just help educate me, because I was kind of curious when Kaylin asked, is it ever beneficial to our staff if they are going to get extra days off to have the ability to float those during the course of the year as opposed to just at Christmas? I mean, you can just tell me as a city manager too. I ask because I don't know. So just, you can educate me.
The problem we have currently with floating them is we either float them and lose them or float them and pay them out, and we're trying to not pay anything out. And so
Okay,
we're
thanks.
trying to not, yeah, we're trying to not float things for that reason. I'm
Gotcha.
perfectly fine if you guys don't want to adopt this until we get to June. But the problem is I need something, I need at least January to July. So I have some holidays in there.
Given the cuckoo-ness of 2020 and COVID, I'm comfortable putting it on the 2021 one, but I'm just thinking maybe in future, maybe it's easier to. So I guess I can, did you already make a motion, Tawny? I missed it, but I'm happy to make a motion approving said schedule with those days off for staff, and somebody can second it or not.
I have a motion that Kaylin made with Tawny.
Oops. Okay. Sorry. Out of it.
So, yeah, to be clear, and the motion is to approve as written, correct?
Correct.
So, I'll call for the votes and we'll see what happens. Karen?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're on to section 8, approval of the bills against the city of Moab.
Oh, I move to approve the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $300,030.14.
Thank you, Tawny, for that. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, Mike, I'll take your second. Discussion, Tawny?
Oh, they're too far away.
That's okay. You don't need discussion if you don't want to. It's past 10. I can just call for the vote.
There wasn't anything really out of the ordinary or strange. It does my heart good to see Architectural Squared moving along. I know that means Walnut Lane is happening. I was pretty impressed given how crazy it's been that we've still been able to do a lot of local spending. And I think it looks to me like everybody's working hard to keep expenses down, even in the most mundane ways. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, then I will call for the vote. Ronnie?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Bonnie?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will so move.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for a great meeting tonight, and to staff for all your hard work. And happy holidays. But I guess we'll see each other next week, Wednesday and Friday. So happy Hanukkah.
Thank